call this meeting to order. Thank you. This meeting of the General Governance Committee is being held in hybrid meeting format with virtual and in-person participation by members of the public, staff, and council. This meeting is also being live streamed and may be viewed online at ajax.ca/live. Friendly reminder to all participants, please use their microphone at all times for the benefit of those participating in council chambers and joining remotely. I'll now call this meeting to order. We will start with the land acknowledgement. We'd like to begin this meeting by acknowledging that the land which we gather is situated within the traditional and treaty territories of the Mississaugas. More specifically, the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation, signatories of the Gunshot Treaty of 1788 and the Williams Treaties of 1923. This land is and will continue to be home to the Indigenous peoples. Let us acknowledge the mistakes and traumas of the past through authenticity and support truth and reconciliation. Let us engage and celebrate Indigenous communities by being leaders of action and acknowledging the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples and the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's recommendations towards truth and reconciliation. Let us keep these principles close as we continue towards truth and reconciliation and as we move forward with kindness and respect as a community. Any disclosures of pecuniary interests from the committee? Seeing none. Could I get a mover for the adoption of minutes? We'll do open and close. I see Councillor Bauer, and we will start the vote. Any questions, comments? We'll start the vote. Thank you. We're on to the consent agenda. The only one that wasn't pulled was 4.3. Does anyone want to pull 4.3? Seeing none, can I get a mover for 4.3, please? I see Councillor Henry. We'll start the vote on 4.3. Thank you. We'll start with item 4.1, PSA-2025-12, the Durham Meadoway Shared Services Memorandum of Understanding and Funding Requests. We had Councillor Dyes pull that. Councillor Dyes? Do you want to? Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to pull this one and request that staff participate in the design and the shared service memorandum on the Meadoway out here. And just a comment about that, and the reason why is I sit on TRCA and I've watched the Meadoway progress through Toronto, and it's been extremely successful for tourism as it goes through different municipalities also. Of Toronto, like Scarborough, places like that. They have different stopping points and they have different activities where they've grown community gardens and all kinds of various things that are of interest, and they have become a place of special events. And because our trail it'll go through the Canada National Trail, eventually through the tip of Greenwood, it's really important for us to be able to connect the Toronto Trail to the Durham Trail as well. So I think it's really valuable for us and for tourism dollars, and it also offers great opportunity for our residents to have some really great outdoor events that are often provided through TRCA and other not-for-profit organizations that work in the outdoors and have some great activities. So that is my request that it be put forward.
So thank you through the chair to Regional Councillor Dyes. Staff will require council direction for that. So procedurally, I would defer to the clerk for the process for that, but happy to answer any further questions.
Thank you. We have Regional Councillor Crawford.
Thank you. By receiving this, we're not actually giving direction, correct? Okay, because I guess of course my only issue is around the funding piece of it. And if I remember at the region, they suggested that we should be not doing something and put our money towards something else, if I'm not mistaken.
Through the chair to Regional Councillor Crawford, I believe what happened was the region initially recommended a split by population for the total cost of the detailed design, and at that time, the Ajax council or the Ajax representatives on regional council spoke about that there's a lot of work already underway or existing in Ajax, and so the portion of that the town pays should be relative to the amount of work and the amount of kilometers, I guess, as part of the Meadoway. So regional staff took that direction, and the cost calculation that's presented in the MOU is reflective of that.
It
So
came down, correct?
that's correct.
Yeah, quite significantly, I think, yeah. I love actually what Regional Councillor Dye said about creating a destination like community gardens and that kind of thing, because we know that there's a want for that in Ajax. How much will we have any input into what goes on around this trail if it is decided to go through?
Through the chair to Regional Councillor Crawford, it is a regional project, so I don't want to speak for their process, but it would certainly be town staff's expectation that we would have a role to play in terms of finalizing elements, specifically those that are in Ajax.
And this cost right here, this 119, who looks after it after the fact? So does it become an operational cost to the town after it's built?
Through the chair, I'm not actually sure about that. I do believe that a lot of the capital projects will be town-owned assets. I think there will be a portion that will be the town's responsibility to maintain, and a portion that is the region's.
And this is on the hydro fields, right?
For parts of it, yes.
Parts of it. And it connects out to Taunton, correct?
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Collier.
Thank you, Chair. I'm looking for clarification on this. This is 119,000 and change unbudgeted items. So I just wonder, is Councillor Dye is asking that this be added to the budget? Because I think that would be a request to be made on December 15th, if I'm correct.
Sorry, Councillor Dies again. I'm going to let you in.
Well, that's probably better answered by staff, though, procedurally.
Through the chair, we do have a way. I'll defer to the clerk for procedure.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the ideal scenario would be that this was brought forward as an amendment at next week's special council meeting. So today we would not put forward an amendment, as this is not an amendment period for the budget. And at the special council meeting next week would be the appropriate time to bring it forward and have that discussion about funding.
Okay, that's what I was getting at. I mean, adding this today, it's not in the budget. I didn't put it in the budget, it's not in the budget. So even if we did something today, it's not going to do anything. So that is the correct way to do this, would be December 15th. Thank you.
Just confirm it's not in the budget?
Not in the budget.
Regional Councillor Dies.
So moving forward then, can staff at least have that conversation for a budget as to what exactly the money would go towards? So obviously building the trail is some of it, but my understanding is in municipalities that you go through, for example, would be the next stop, they have like a trailhead where they're going to build a playground and have a parking lot. And I think that might be something we can do as well, but we'd have to look into kind of whatever the configuration is, but have access for Ajax residents when it goes through the piece of trail through Ajax.
Absolutely, through the chair. This project is the detailed design, so those finer details of what will be included I imagine will be a part of the scope from what the region is working on. Again, the finer details of what that means for the Ajax specific locations will be kind of fleshed out further through this process, should it be
To know
approved.
there's options would be good.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Chair Lee. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Ms. Browners, for the report. Just confirming, there is no mention of any timeline in this report. So confirming that this would be a budgeted or an item to be added to the 2026 budget, or when?
Through the chair, yes. So this would be if $119,000 or change were to be added to the budget, it would flow to the region in 2026, and the region manages the project. So I'm not sure exactly how long they anticipate the detailed design work to make. However, it would be a 2026 budget item for Ajax.
For Ajax. And so the region has confirmed that the design process will take place as well, or begin in 2026?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
For second time, Regional Councillor Crawford.
Yeah, thank you for letting me back in. Is there any way of knowing, because 119,000 is just flat, right? So for me, it's about what happens in the future, operationally wise. What would be, is there any way of knowing what that might cost, what it would look like? before the 15th?
Through the chair, there are some long-term capital projects that would be a result of this, some trail works and that are in the forecast or in the DC background study kind of in the future. The listing of those projects, we can certainly prepare to speak to at budget when it's discussed on that date.
Does this fall under community benefit charge?
Through the chair, I don't believe so.
No, okay, all right, thank you.
Councillor Henry.
Quick question. MAT taxes, would anything to do with this fall under MAT taxes because of any type of tourism that could be brought in or races or any way it could be promoted?
Through the chair, based on the town's definition of how we use the MAT tax, expenses in the future could be. However, I think each of those items that are town expenses that would come as a result of the outcome of the detailed design work would go through our traditional budget process. And there are a number of other funding sources that could be more appropriately utilized, but as with all items, the staff would look at all funding sources.
So can we get something to council prior to the budget meeting showing where it could come from in the budget if we wanted to bring it forward? That way we're better prepared to know how to vote on this at the budget?
Through the chair, staff can look at the other projects that would be connected to this and bring forth any proposed funding sources as part of that.
Thank you.
Ms. Cruciano, just one question. So this was an ask for, in a sense, this budget, as we've discussed, we can add it at the mayor's meeting. If it's not approved for any reason, can we just pay it next year? Or is this one of those, like, we have to do it now, or otherwise this will never get built?
Through the chair, I think that's a question I would need to take back to regional staff. Their intention is to start this work as soon as possible to not delay the project. So I believe that the project would, again, I'm not sure, I don't want to speculate.
They're putting us in a rough spot due to timing. We just got this now, we have to make a decision within a week without kind of further insight. I'd like to think that they'll continue making this maybe next year, but if you could let us know about that by the budget meeting, that'd be very appreciated.
Sure, no problem.
See, no further questions. Can I get a mover for, did I get a mover for this? I didn't. So we have Councillor Dyes, thank you. Any other further questions, comments? No, we'll call the vote. To receive for information, correct. That passes. Thank you very much. We're on to item 4.2. Let's start with the mover for this first. Yeah. So put on the. Well, sorry. Do we have to move it first before we talk about it? We do, right? So just to put it on the floor, folks. I see Regional Councillor Crawford, and the first person to pull this was Councillor Henry. Councillor Henry.
Thank you, Chair. So I would ask a few questions about this. Number one is, we're looking at over 43,000, I'm assuming unbudgeted, correct? Yes, unbudgeted? Yes, okay, so we need to have this put in the budget. Again, I'm going to go back to the funding source where this is coming from. So we have that information for next week. And then I'm going to ask about, I did ask the director of bylaw about how many visitors we have to these two parking spaces, spaces within Ajax. And there's no way to really give me an answer to that because it's not monitored by bylaw per se. It's not permitted by bylaw. So there's no way to give me an answer on how many visitors we have because I was trying to quantify the amount of visitors we have per year versus the amount of money that we're putting out for this project. And the answer that I received was, give me 1 minute here. So the Crothers Creek Marsh parking lot is not regularly patrolled by our team and is not included in the waterfront parking program. Additionally, since residence permits are not specific to certain waterfront parking lots, it is challenging to determine the number of residents versus non-residents parking at Rotary Park Pavilion. Other variables include whether ticketed vehicles belong to non-residents who did not pay or residents who did not obtain their permits. Other parking enforcement is also only active on weekends, so we would not have any data for anything outside of the weekends from May 15th to September 15th. So I guess my question to you, Mr. Nichols, would be, We know that we've already had some charging stations put in the Durham Center Plaza recently. And at this point, for that extra 43,000 of taxable revenue, what's the big benefit here? Because we know that most people along the waterfront are walking to that area. Those of us in the north, if we own electric vehicles, have charging stations at home. And quite frankly, I'd rather see my northern residents utilize the waterfront than people from out of town. So what's the benefit here?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Henry. I also can't speak to the number of people that park in that lot normally, but what we do see is that with the province of Ontario, in a lot of their Destination Ontario work that they're doing, EV chargers are a tourism draw. And so while those numbers may not exist historically, we are certainly of the opinion and of the mindset that adding these chargers to our waterfront would help to create more of a tourism destination along our waterfront. We do also know that the waterfront is heavily utilized. This is a topic that comes up frequently. That's why we have the parking programs in place. And we don't have any chargers currently south of Town Hall as it is. So kind of looking at it holistically, it's creating more of an environment for people with EVs to come and visit the waterfront. And also, we've received this grant from the province of Ontario to install these chargers. They've seen a value in it. So we're hopeful to use that money and get this project done.
I understand your point of view. I'm just not sure about, the 43,000 at this tight budget time of year and what that looks like to the residents. And are we promoting more out-of-town visitors versus those who live in our town who wouldn't necessarily need a charger at the waterfront? That's my concern with taxpayers' money. So
what this would be using the municipal accommodation tax. So the funding is derived from those accommodation visits that take place. It's not property tax revenue. And the hope would be to attract people from out of town to ensure that municipal accommodation tax revenue is either increased over the long run as people with EV chargers come to visit our waterfront, hopefully stay in Ajax. But this wouldn't be $43,000 hitting property taxpayers.
municipal tax, municipal accommodation tax.
That's right.
And what does it look like for when you're putting these spots in at the waterfront? Because I'm noticing in places where there's been additions that accessible spots have been moved over to accommodate. Is that what we're looking at for Rotary Park and for the pavilion? Will we be moving accessible spots to make room for these?
I wouldn't have the answer to that directly. It wouldn't be my expectation or to my knowledge that would be what is occurring here.
So they would be, if there were spots taken away, it would be like regular spots that would be taken away. The accessible area would not be touched, to your knowledge.
I don't believe that we've done that work yet to identify which spots would be used, but that could certainly be taken into consideration.
Okay, so let's maybe talk about this between now and next week, the budget. Okay, thank you.
Just to clarify, does this go to the budget?
Just through the chair, no, it does not. It's a vote today.
Because it's through the municipal accommodation
Accommodation
tax.
tax, yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's, yeah, what
Yeah.
they're saying. We're gonna have to get you back in afterwards, so we will go to Councillor Tyler Morin.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to Ms. McLarty, I think, Director McLarty, I think you just answered my question. So this isn't going to affect our budget or tax from the, okay, we're using $100,000 in grant funding. And can we just get a small definition of municipal accommodation tax reserve? Very small, just
Are you asking for the definition or just the balance of the reserve?
not the balance, just.
Thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Tyler Morin. Yes, so the municipal accommodation tax reserve is used for either capital or operating expenditures. And staff do try to use those expenses as much towards tourism-related expenses as possible. Okay. So in this case, the program that we're receiving funds from, the EV Charge On program, is designed to get folks that are traveling through different parts of Ontario to use the chargers as part of that network. So putting them at the waterfront is looking to be somewhat of a tourist draw for folks that are either visiting and with their electric vehicles or that are passing through Ajax.
Okay, thank you. I'm satisfied that it's not a tax. Thanks.
Thank you for your satisfaction. Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Chair Lee. Good afternoon. Thank you for the report, Mr. Nichols. So I just want to confirm, the grant funding has already been approved. So we're not estimating that we're going to receive 100,000. We have 100,000.
That's correct. The amounts are based on agreements that have been signed.
Great. And what is the timeline for installing these to maintain the grant?
The chargers will need to be operational by November of next year. So we'd be looking at a year, roughly.
Okay, perfect. And these stations that would be installed in two areas that really would be a great spot for tourism, coming down to the beach, coming down to our waterfront, they will take up parking spaces. Will those spaces have the same, fall under that waterfront parking program from May to September? So if it's a resident, they will not be charged a fee and they can charge their car there, but if you are not a resident or you don't register your car, you will have to pay for the spot as well.
I don't have the answer to that question handy. I'm not sure who might. I don't know.
Through the chair to Councillor Bauer, yes, the rules of the waterfront program would still apply. So residents would be entitled to park for free, and visitors would have to pay during the controlled period on the weekends.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. No, I'm glad to see this come. I'm glad to see that as a hopefully a motivator to bring some people to stop and stay and charge their car. Thank you so much. Those are my questions.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. We have Mayor Collier.
Thank you, Chair. Kind of following up on that, I don't see any info in the report as far as revenue generated to offset the one-time cost. How much revenue would we expect to be generated by these 10 chargers?
We did look into that. So the current chargers that the town has generate several $1,000s, I think, per year for the town. So these chargers themselves would likely generate, can't remember the numbers. I don't recall if you have them on hand, Director Meepham, or I want to say.
Is that about 2,000 per charger currently?
No, so I think that, again, I'm going completely off my memory here. Do you recall? I think it was under the 10,000 that.
That is correct,
Yeah.
Through the chair. Currently, we generate about $2,000 per charger. So we could expect slightly more than that, given the traffic and the draw along the waterfront. But I think it was about $8,000 a year in total that we generate currently.
I'll just speak to it quickly, Chair. I didn't support this last time it came in a different format because it was heavily weighted towards town funding versus the grant. But in this case, it's about 70% grant funding, which I believe is good leveraging of tax dollars. Getting 140-odd thousand facility for 40,000. I mean, that makes sense to me. And to the MAT tax, the unfunded portion, which is words I don't like, that's what we're collecting that money for. The municipal accommodation tax. So it's exactly what we're collecting it for, is to put back in. So I'm happy to support it this time around, Liam. Thank you.
Councillor Henry for the second time.
Thank you, Chair. My misunderstanding, because I was under the assumption that it had to go through the budget. So final question on this is municipal accommodation tax reserve, how much is left in that? Do we know?
I'll have to turn it over to.
Through the chair, we are forecasting collecting about 212,000 of the town portion for the year. So we are drawing from that balance.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to use this opportunity to just ask a question to, I think, Director Cooper. So currently, by law, if someone's parked in a green spot that we end up building and they don't have a green plate, are they ticketed for that? And do you know what the fine is?
I don't know what the fine is. I apologize. I'd have to just look that up.
Our waterfront bylaw officers would be looking for that as well with this project?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Seeing no further questions, did we get a mover for this? Yes, we had Regional Councillor Crawford. Thank you. We will call the vote then. That's another thing. Thank you. We are on item 4.3. 3, OES 2025-26, contract award, the Town Hall Accommodation Strategy. Oh, excuse me. That was the one that was passed. 4.4, OES 2025-24, the contract award, RFT number T 25178, security upgrades, video surveillance systems, phase 1 and 2. We have Councillor Henry first. Oh, can I get a move for this? Councillor Henry, and then Councillor Henry first.
Thank you, Chair. So my first question is with regards to, there seems to be some confusion from some residents. I got some feedback, and I just wanted to ask, who's the mover of this report? Sorry, 4.10, or the person who brought it forward, Dave Meredith. With regards to the cameras, there seems to be some confusion by residents about where exactly the cameras are going and who will be in charge of seeing what with the cameras. If it's through the town staff only that has access to it, if it's Durham Regional Police, what that looks like. If you could speak to that, please.
Through the chair to Councillor Henry, the cameras are being located at various locations within the 4 facilities, being Town Hall, Main Library, McLean Community Centre, and the Audley Recreation Centre. We do have an internal policy as it relates to the use of cameras. They are confidential in nature, and we have an internal process that we follow when staff are being asked to gain access for it for specific reasons.
And at this time, these cameras are accessed by Durham Regional Police or not? In this report, what we're referring to?
These are town facility cameras.
Okay.
So we would only have Durham Police sort of involved if there's a criminal element that we're looking at that would require them to have access to our cameras, at which time we would provide that.
So if there was an issue on town property where somebody had to be charged or looking at being charged, that's when the Durham Regional Police would approach us, our town staff, and ask for at that time to please have access to it. It's not something that they have a live feed to, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I might have a second question, but I'm going to leave that for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions, I do have a few questions. So this is a town run, we're not using a third party, this will be town run, is that correct? The cameras themselves and the storage of the footage, that's through the town, correct? Not a third party?
That's correct.
And then if DRPS wanted access to this footage for any reason, they would, in a sense, there's a protocol where they would, I'm guessing, send an email or to staff, and then that's generally approved or not approved, and then a record would be kept of the ask, I guess, is that correct?
Correct, and we've historically worked frequently with DRPS when there's been a need to access our cameras, yes.
What if a constituent wanted to access the footage for whatever reason? They think their car was scratched or whatever. Can they access the footage? Can they request to access the footage? And do we have a protocol that allows them to access the footage?
So in the issue where you're dealing potentially with an insurance claim, we have a protocol that we go through to gain access to see if there is evidence of damage to a particular vehicle, should that happen within a town parking lot, and we have a camera that's covering that footage. We could use it in those situations, yes.
And then, so...
sorry, just to say that obviously the residents do not have access to any of that information. That's just at a staff level.
But can they request it outside of an FOI, or does it go through an FOI to get that information?
I'm just using an example of something that happens to a vehicle within a municipal parking lot, or quite often within a town street. We do have obviously dash cams within our vehicles as well. So in an instance where an incident occurs on town property or by a town vehicle, we will look at cameras that we have available and footage that we have available to determine if the town was at fault or negligent in any way.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can provide some additional context as well. So through MFIPA, there is the FOI process that you've referenced. So any resident could request, as it is a record of the town, and we would go through our identified policies and share with them what could be shared with. There's always the redaction of personal information. We have our records retention schedule, which allows us to save records for certain amounts of times. So we would go through all of those policies and processes. When we talk about our emergency responders, we also have identified policies and processes on how to provide them with any records, including recordings, as needed for their investigation. So the short answer is yes, they would be able to put in a request, but it would come through the FOI process.
And then how long do we store the footage for?
I don't have that on top hand for you, but I can get that for you.
And then last question is, because obviously, I've brought up issues of privacy before, and I do think there's a cause for these cameras, but I want to ensure that resident privacy is maintained as well. So we don't know how long off the head, we don't know how long the footage is kept for. And then I think that was my last question, was how long? You know what, it'll come back to me. Thank you very much. I see Regional Councillor Crawford.
Thank you. Sorry, your questions brought up questions. So we hear, and maybe we're not covered under the same privacy laws, but we hear a lot from the police with body-worn cameras where they have to redact information when they are looking for, specific footage. So again, I want to ask, operationally wise, does this increase operation costs by putting in these cameras? Because all of that, I imagine, would still apply, right? You would have to take out bases or put parts on them or something like.
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Chair, I don't have any operational costs offhand that I can share with you. We do have approved policies with sharing information with like DRPS as an example, and those ones we would not redact as there's that mutual sharing. Through the FOI process, those are costs that would come through estimates that we would provide the requester, so it wouldn't be something that the town would take on as a cost. It would actually be a cost that fell back on the requester as part of their request. So it's the same as the time that we charge for redacting files. So if we spend an X amount of hours redacting files that are provided to a requester, they would pay based on the amount of time that staff had to spend in their records to provide them with those, to fulfill their request. So that'd be something we also did with video.
So would we have to hire someone to do that and then pay them back when, like, I'm trying to understand any added costs?
Yeah, so unfortunately, there's no blanket answer for you. It would really depend on the request. So if it was a larger request, we probably would have to look at a third-party service to provide some of those redactions. If it's a smaller request, it may be something we'll be able to handle in-house and then charge accordingly.
So from, I guess to Director Meredith, have we in these locations had issues with security?
So maybe I'll just explain sort of the context of the award that's before you today. The majority of this is replacement of existing cameras.
Okay.
Okay, so these cameras have been in place for 10 to 15 years. The quality, the imaging, the resolution is poor. Technology's changed, sort of web-based access in terms of having access to the footage is also much different. So this is much of an upgrade to the quality of footage that we are looking for. But it's not just cameras, it's also access control, it's intrusion alerts. It's more than just cameras. So it's more of an overall security approach to our facilities, which was based on the security assessment that was completed in 2019 by Lobo that looked at all of our facilities and made recommendations with respect to investments in town security. Now, within the facilities, there are some areas that were identified as gaps, both within the facilities and around the perimeter, where there will be some new cameras added because we don't have the broad range of coverage that we would hope for. And we've identified gaps, whether dealing with DRPS or through our internal services, that we should be adding to our infrastructure. So that's really the purpose, is upgrading and identifying some gaps that we have, but it's not something new from an operations standpoint. We've been dealing with this for at least 10 to 15 years and have worked in a positive way with DRPS on sort of the requests that come forward day in and day out.
Would it be similar to what we have in the plaza? Those are CCTV cameras, right? It wouldn't be as broad?
So those cameras along Commercial Avenue are a bit different. They're done sort of in partnership with DRPS. Yeah. So there was phase one where we added 5 cameras sort of previously. We have a second phase where we'll be adding 4 more, but that's a separate program that's primarily led by DRPS, and we're sort of a partner as part of that project.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Henry.
Thank you. I just want to say, I think this is a really good idea, and I think it's long overdue. We've had some concerns lately been brought forward by different members of the public with regards to places and spaces around our public library and different other public places that the town owns. And I think with those security concerns, it's really good that we have this in place. I know that recently, and sorry, I'm a little off topic here, but I know recently that we had a meeting for a shooting within the town, Regional Councillor Sterling Lee and myself. And in that meeting, we were asked about installing more security cameras around the town in other areas that the town doesn't own. So I know that this is a concern residents have brought forward, and I think you know, the timing of this report and the necessary of this equipment to be updated is very important. Happy to support.
Thank you. Seeing no other requests to speak, we will call the vote. I'm going to stop it. Close. I understand. We're going to... Do we have anything on the screens? Okay, I'm going to start the vote again. There's something on our screens? Thank you. Okay, thank you. So we have item 4.5, PDS 2025-30, update on bicycle-friendly communities gold status. Could I get a mover for this, please? We see Councillor Tyler Morin. Any questions from the committee? I had a question on my side. So in the report, I believe this is to Mr. Romanowski, or no, Mr. Franken. There was benefits listed of like gold status. We've been silver status for the longest time. I guess like what is the end up, what's the charge to apply for this? Or is it just staff time in the application? Want to press the button?
Through the chair, so to clarify, is this for the cost to reapply, or is this for the cost of fulfilling the actions, the recommendations, the requirements to achieve gold status?
The latter. So like the total costs involved to get gold status for the town of Ajax, what would the dollar amount be?
Through the chair, so as provided in the report, there are a number of recommendations that have been mentioned, as well as the associated costs. Those were the recommendations for achieving gold. However, one thing that we're cognizant about is that Share the Road Cycling Coalition, they do change the criteria every now and then. So in addition to those costs, there may be also additional capacity required in order to ensure that we are able to adapt to those changing conditions.
So correct my math, we have 12,000 over 4 years, as well as a possible 50,000 initial cost. So that's 62,000. Is that accurate? Did I count wrong?
Oops.
Just, yeah, keep it.
Okay,
so
that's roughly-
62,000. So I'm well known to be the non-biker of council, but I just would argue back that, can we start this next year, for example? If we didn't apply this year and we applied next year, is that a possibility? Or do we lose all our status, including our silver status?
If I could jump in here, Chair. It's probably hundreds of thousands of dollars to eventually get us to
Right.
gold. We need to apply to maintain our silver status. And as Army had mentioned, Share the Road constantly is changing the infinite list of criteria, which again, will probably generate a different number. So I think it'd be unfair for us to even ballpark anything at this point. It would be expensive to get to gold because it's not just the programs or some of the initiatives that have been recommended. It would also be staff time, resources, all the efforts that go into that. So,
and that's even to just renew silver as well, is that correct? There would be...
Silver is what we have now. We have our program in place. We execute with our school community groups and all our other programs, and that's already built into Army's portfolio. So no change there other than the app applying to maintain our silver status. We're always working towards the gold achievement. If and when we get to that point, those items will make their way through the
Into the budget process.
budget process.
But then ultimately, if any one of those budget asks is not approved through the future mayor's budgets, we could never hit gold. That's a fair assessment, correct?
I guess if the money is not approved to achieve a certain recommendation, yes.
Right. So I'm sure I'm in the minority, but I don't think I can support, I don't think we should be aiming for gold. I think silver is fine. I don't think this adds any incremental value to the town, whether we are a silver or gold. I think Whitby was gold, and I don't think it brought them any additional revenue or additional tourism. So I'm happy to stay with silver, but just, this idea of eventually hitting a gold distinction, I have serious issues with. But the recommendation is to maintain silver. I just want to ask the specific costs. Regional Councillor Crawford.
Well, I am a biker, and unless gold status gets me from the north to the south safely, then no, I see no value in this. I don't know if that's what happens or not with this, but it's one of those nice to haves. But I think we have other things that we need to deal with right away.
Regional Councillor Dias.
Thank you. Just a question. I've done numerous rides with Share the Road, well, not Share the Road, but with the bike rides that we've already sort of christened as, interested in what and important in what we do. And we've actually had some of those rides start here in Ajax. And my question to you would be, for those organizations that choose to do those types of events here, we have to have some sort of status with respect to cycling. And it also, I would assume the other question would be too, would that not also be the case most of the time if I, as a cyclist, was to look online to find out where those communities were that were bicycle friendly and therefore would get that tourism? Is that correct?
Is correct. So for organizations such as the Waterfront Regeneration Trust and, as you mentioned, many others, they do consider the bicycle-friendly communities designation. So that's correct.
So I know I was with the Waterfront Trust on a recent ride that had 160 cyclists going through communities on a ride of over 600 kilometers, and there's a lot of communities that benefit from that. So I think that's really important to consider, because that was the whole purpose of going through this process of getting designation in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Henry.
Thank you. Just to clarify, if we vote on this report as is, we are voting on that staff proceed with the application process for the 2026-23 renewal of the Bicycle Friendly Community Awards Silver Destination. And that's all we're voting on at this time, correct?
It is, sorry, I led us down a path.
So sorry, yeah, we went down a path that had nothing to do with where we're going, So let's keep focused and keep on track here. We're voting simply on what we already have, and we just want to reapply for it. That's it. There's nothing hidden or mysterious in this, right? Okay.
Nothing hidden or mysterious. We're reapplying for silver to maintain our silver status.
Excellent.
Period.
Let's stay silver until we get to, that place where we think we've got the gold. Until then, let's reapply. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henry. Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Chair Lee. Thank you for that clarification, Councillor Henry. Funny enough, Mr. Francia, thank you for all the work that you do. We were just talking about you and all of the work you do regarding active transportation and making our town bike friendly at a public school this morning with the principal and vice principal. So I just wanted to let you know that we appreciate this program, and I'm very happy to see us apply to continue being a silver medalist at this time. Thank you. You have my full support. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I didn't read the recommendation. I read the report, but not. So I went down a different hole. Apologize. So we will call the vote then. I see no other questions or comments. Okay, thank you, everybody. We're on item 4.6, CS 2025-23, mayoral direction 5-2025, healthcare spending account. We have Regional Councillor Crawford as the first one to pull this.
Thank you. My question is around, I guess, process. Why would a mayor directive be used for this? I don't know who answers that question.
I can take a stab at it, or
Oh, yeah, go
or
ahead.
perhaps the mayor would want to speak on that first.
Mayor Collier.
Happy to answer that one. Just procedurally makes it easier, rather than bring a motion to the meeting and then go back and do it, and then then directing staff to come back with a report. We just skipped that step and had staff come back with a report.
Okay. All right. Did anybody ask for it?
I asked for it.
Oh, you did. Okay. Okay. So no other municipalities have this, right? From the report says.
Director Cooper.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Regional Councillor Crawford, so there is some benchmarking done in the report which shows that of the municipalities that responded to our survey, about half of them have a healthcare spending account. None of them have a personal wellness account, and the other half have none of the above.
Okay.
Councillor Henry.
Thank you, Chair. So my concern with this motion, or with this report, is that it wasn't brought forth by staff, that we're looking at what everybody else has, which seems to be the common and good enough, which is the SCA, and that by moving forth with this, especially in and around a sensitive time for budget, I get that there's no cost associated with it, but it's just, I don't think it's a good look. I just don't. It's kind of gives me that feeling of let them eat cake kind of thing, and I don't like it. I can't support it. That's it. Thank you.
The recommendation right now is to receive for information. So did you not want to receive this information?
Is there direction then?
No, the recommendation right now. We have Mayor Collier.
Thank you, Chair, and I'll speak to it. I do have a motion that I'll bring, and the clerk has it. It'll come on the screen. I asked for this to come, just for staff to look at this and bring this back, because I found the current policy very restrictive in what we can use it for. This, as Councillor Henry pointed out, doesn't have any monetary change. And again, it's a use it or lose it type thing. So if you don't use it, there's no impact. But you can still use it for everything that you can use it for today. This just, rather than being restricted by the CRA guideline, which I don't know why that would be the guideline for a healthcare spending account, that this just allows us to use it for other types of things rather than just the standard that there is now. But there is no cost impact to that, so I didn't see an issue with that. Councillor Henry, if you can't support it, that's fine. I mean, even if this goes through, it doesn't really change anything that we do on a day-to-day basis. It just broadens the parameters a little bit. There are some tax implications to this. So it basically changes it from a non-taxable benefit, which again, if you don't use it, there isn't anything anyway, to a taxable benefit if you do use it. But other than that, it's the exact same program. It just makes it broader so you can actually use it for more different things. Is that accurate?
Yes, all of that's accurate.
Okay. I'm going to support it because that's why I asked for it to be brought forward. The amendment basically is, instead of be received for information, the staff be directed to place an updated council remuneration bylaw on the December 8th, 2025 council agenda, which reflects the conversion of the local healthcare spending account to personal wellness account. And I would ask for support. Thank you.
So there's a motion to amend on the floor. We have Councillor Henry on the motion to amend.
Thank you, Chair. So I'd ask Deputy CAO Cooper, what happens currently now if we don't use the HCSA? What happens now, currently?
So it's just an amount that's available to each member of council. The regional members also have a separate account that they're issued by the region that we administer, and if it's not used, it's just lost.
When you say lost, where is that money sitting?
Maybe I'll let Director Mepham answer that.
Through the chair. This additional amount was recently approved earlier this year, so it is not in a budget at this time. It's an allowance that was provided to council for their use. So right now, it's just managed within the operating budget.
Within the operating budget. So it's part of a budget, a pot of money that is sitting there that if we don't use, goes back into the budget. It just sits in the budget. It doesn't come out. So let's say the expiry date is the end of the year of December 2025. None of us use that. What happens to that money? It just stays there and builds for 26, correct?
The operating budget does get, the amounts do not carry over from year to year, so the amount gets reset to zero the following year.
To us, it gets reset to zero, but that money didn't disappear on the operating budget side. It got redistributed into the budget, correct?
Through the chair, these amounts are not budgeted at this time. It was a new amount that was just recently added.
This year?
Correct.
When it was added by the council this year, it was put into the budget, was it not?
No, it is not added to the budget at all. There is no amount for the 21-25 for each council member at this time within the budget.
So even though it was passed at the beginning of the year, it's not there? So let's say somebody here on council tried to claim that amount, the HCSA right now, would they be able to claim it?
Yes, they would.
How can they claim it if it's not budgeted?
We would pay it out as per bylaw. We would pay based on our current allowable amount as per bylaw, and we would manage that within the envelope that is allocated to council and the operating budget overall.
So it would be coming out of the operating budget, even though it's not budgeted for. You would take that funding and give it to, let's say it's me. I'm just going to use me as an example. I put forth a request. You're going to pay me out because we have a bylaw that says you have to. You're going to take that money out of the operating budget right now, currently, whether it's budgeted for or not. It's got to come out of somewhere.
Through the chair, yes. So we would pay it out of the operating budget, and typically when a new item is brought forward such as that, we like to take a look at how much it gets used before we commit an amount going forward. So we typically budget based on usage, and then once we have a good idea of what are the needs in the budget, we include an amount in there.
Got it. So you would give it a little section or subsection or name for next year. Once you see it's being used, you'll be like, oh, here out of the operation budget, we're going to call it this, and it'll be budgeted for the next year.
Correct, yes.
Got it. Okay. So I guess, and please forgive me, but my point for this long road was to show that if the money's not used, it stays in the operation budget, as opposed to if it is used. And once we change that today to this, what is this, PWA, then no matter what, we get the money no matter what. Then it is forwarded to each council member, correct?
No, through the chair.
You still have to get it, you still have to claim it some way.
It's all claim-based.
But you have different ways in which to claim it?
I think it just broadens the requirements. It's the same amount. There's no difference in dollars. But right now, the HCSA is bound to the CRA regulations of what a healthcare spending account is, versus the PWA is more broad. But there's no added money. It's the exact same money that we are currently allocated per the bylaw.
So what happens with the, just to clarify, the PWA, if you don't use it, would stay in the operating budget as well?
That's correct.
But one has more regulations on what you can use it for, and one is more broad what you can use it for.
That's correct.
Okay, so can somebody give me an example of what it can be used for that it cannot be used for now? A gym membership, correct? Which council gets a free gym membership at all our gyms anyways. A Peloton for your house, I'm hearing from Councillor Bauer, a bicycle. Okay, I'm still a no. Thank you.
Regional Councillor Crawford.
So, it sounds like we're completely thick. And I'm not trying to make it sound like that. So we get all the benefits of the HCSA plus. And is it administered through a third party?
Well, could I jump in on that, please? Through the chair to Regional Councillor Crawford. So currently, the healthcare spending account is administered by the town. So Ms. Mepham's staff administer that internally. In looking into this on the heels of the mayoral direction, we costed out what it would cost to run it through the carrier. And the cost is so negligible, especially based on utilization of the program, that it would certainly be staff's preference to move this to be administered by the carrier. So if council were to approve a change to a personal wellness account today, it would be my recommendation that we run it through the carrier for almost no additional cost, just a minor administration fee, which is probably lower than our cost of administering it internally.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Taylor Moore.
Regional Councillor Crawford asked my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Chair Lee. So based on the utilization of the current plan, there's not a lot of claims being made. But do you expect by opening what is eligible under a PWA that the claims will likely go up because there's more amenities that are covered?
Through the chair to Councillor Bauer, I think we could speculate about that. It's certainly possible, but just to put this cost item in the context of the town's budget, this is very, very small potatoes. I mean, the cost of this program right now is, based on utilization, is about $2,500.
Right.
Even if it grew, it's still a very small cost in the context of council remuneration generally and the overall budget.
Right, and then the tax status changed because right now it's non-taxable, but it would become a taxable benefit based on what we use it for.
That's correct, but you're just taxed on the utilization, so any member who doesn't utilize the product would not feel any difference at all.
Okay, and how much are they, so it's currently administered through the town and there are no admin fees to run it internally versus through Sunlight or a third party?
Through the chair to Councillor Bauer, currently there are no administration fees. The town does follow the CRA guidance that is provided, and that guides the amounts that get paid out.
Okay, so switching to a PWA, we would want to go third party, so we would have admin fees based on claim and possible increase in the amount used because there's just more items to use the funds for. And it's a taxable benefit. I just want to see what the differences are for my own clarification. Is that right?
Yes, that characterization is correct, yes.
Thank you very much. Those are my questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Mayor Collier.
There you go. That's what. Just to recap, Chair, now I don't want to spark another round of questions, but I think this, I'm not sure, it's gotten a little more complicated than it needs to be. So I just wanted to recap. Budget neutral. Every member of this council voted to support the healthcare spending account just a few months ago. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. This is not something that I'm trying to sneak through or anything. This is the same thing. It just is broadening the parameters a little bit. That's it. I just wanted to make sure that was very clear. Thank you.
Any more clarifications from council? Seeing none, this is on the amendment in front of you. We will call the vote. Councillor Bauer? Thank you. Okay, has everyone voted? It looks like. Okay. I don't think you're allowed voting conflict, but it does pass regardless. I think conflict counts as a no. For all intents and purposes, yeah. So just next time, we can't use that. Okay, so that passes. So now, we should, sorry, council, as amended then, can I get Yeah, it's already been moved, I believe, right? Someone moved this earlier? Yeah, so we'll, as amended, we'll start the vote. Mayor Collier has a request.
Just, thank you, Chair. Just, I appreciate you letting me in on this. And just, I guess through you to the clerk, we've got a lot of resources sitting in the room from DRPS. I think they were notified that the meeting was at 1 o'clock, which I'm wondering, is there a way to pause this? Because we still have a few presentations. Delegations are going to take some time on our GGC meeting and go to the presentation in the council meeting. And so we don't have to have our good people from DRPS sitting in the audience longer than they need to.
At this time, the only option would be to suspend the rules of the procedure bylaw and add an item. They were provided with the advice that
I will make a motion to suspend the rules to add the presentation from DRPS under our general government committee meeting rather than the council meeting.
So through you, Mr. Chair, that'll be a 2/3 motion required at this time.
Thank you.
And seconder required?
No.
Not on GGC.
Just making sure. So we have the request to suspend rules. Any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, we'll start the vote. Now, what happens if I press conflict?
Don't.
Okay, that moves. We're going to adjust the agenda for the GGC presentation and have DRPS come and present.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just give us a moment to pull up the presentation as it was not prepared for this meeting.
Thank you.
Folks, why don't we call it a 2-minute recess? Let's make it a 5-minute recess. Everyone back at 2:05, please. Thank you. council agenda for presentations. We have Durham Regional Police Service Board Community Policing presentation. We have Sean Collier, don't know who he is, Chair, Durham Region Police Service Board, and Gary Cubitt, Vice Chair, Durham Region Police Service Board. Mayor Clark, you want to set the table?
I will do my best, Chair. Thank you. And unfortunately, Vice Chair Gary Cubitt couldn't make it. I just want to introduce some of the people that we have here. I don't know that they need any introduction. We have Chief Peter Morera here. We have two of our deputy chiefs, Kirkpatrick and Kim Yandel are here. It's our Ajax Superintendent, Stefan Atteri, Chris Bovey, who is our, Communications, Government Relations, and Executive Director Bill Clancy, and I've asked Board Member Karen Fisher to make the presentation on my behalf as I'm part of this committee here today. So, Karen, please go ahead.
Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Well, and Sean stole my thunder because I was going to introduce everybody. So I think I'll just I'll just start. Good afternoon, and thank you for making time for us today. As Sean mentioned, I am a member of the Durham Region Police Service Board, and my name is Karen Fisher. In addition, I will say, I don't know if Sean mentioned, but Chris Bovey, our Communications Director, is also joining us today. Hope you are all enjoying our KJ and PJ education posts that are coming out of our communications team. I think they're very popular. So the composition of the Durham Region Police Service Board, we have 7 members, currently one opening right now. From Regional Council, Sean Collier, who was elected chair of our board for the past few years, Mayor of Oshawa, Dan Carter, and Councillor Willie Wu from Clarington. Myself, I am the Regional Council citizen appointee, and the province's appointments are Vice Chair Gary Cubitt and Mr. John Fahey, and the provincial appointee is where we currently have 1 vacancy at the moment. And we're just waiting on the province to appoint that individual. So the Police Service Board's governing legislation is the Community Safety and Policing Act, also called the CSPA, which came into force in April 2024. So we're well into our new governing environment. I think we spoke to this last year. Many of the board's responsibilities under the legislation are the same or similar as those that existed under the former Police Services Act. The main function of the board to ensure the provision of adequate and effective policing. The board executes this responsibility in various ways by hiring and monitoring the chief of police, developing the strategic plan and the budget, and establishing policies for the service. All of these support the goal of providing high-quality policing to our residents. The board is also the employer of the members of the DRPS and is therefore responsible for appointments to the service, negotiating collective agreements with the associations representing those employees. Although the CSPA is very similar to the Police Services Act, there are also some very important changes. First, there is much greater emphasis on board member training and education. Before beginning their duties, board members must take a course on their roles and responsibilities, as well as training related to anti-racism, equity, and inclusion. There is also new training required for police officers. New equipment for police officers is also mandated by a regulation under the CSPA. The service recently had to purchase $1 million in new body armor and specialty equipment to meet these standards. The CSPA also gives the board the responsibility for preparing the strategic plan. This plan is the guiding framework for policing, and boards must develop, monitor, and revise the plan based on input from the chief, members of DRPS, stakeholders, and the public. The board is also required to adopt a diversity plan for the DRPS to ensure that the service reflects the population of the region, which, as we all know, continues to change rapidly. The new act also creates a new oversight body for all police in Ontario called the Inspector General. The Inspector General has set an ambitious agenda to improve policing through inspections, research, data and analytics to drive evidence-based actions and improvements. The Inspector General will also be responsible for monitoring the regulation on an adequate and effective policing. And this regulation establishes a standard to assess the quality of policing. And this is going to be very important when the board is considering future plans and budgets. I'd like to highlight a few areas of focus for the board at the current time. The strategic plan. As I mentioned, one of the central roles of the board is to develop the strategic plan. The 2024 to 2027 strategic plan identifies 3 broad goals: to be a leader in modern and innovative policing, to enhance partnerships, and to build trust and confidence in the DRPS. The board is regularly monitoring progress on these goals through reports and presentations from the service. Second, financial and capital resources. Ensuring the DRPS is properly resourced remains a key focus of the board. Over the last several years, Regional Council has supported growth in staffing to help the DRPS keep up with population growth and the evolving landscape of community safety. Despite the budget increases, the pressures on DRPS remain. In particular, our infrastructure is aging. We must invest in our facilities if we want to be a modern police service that reduces and solves crimes, responds to calls effectively, and inspires the trust, confidence, and support of our members and the public. Our 2026 budget will be up for consideration by Regional Council this week, and we are asking for a 12% increase to meet the demands of policing in our community. Finally, the board is working with the Inspector General to demonstrate that significant changes have occurred at DRPS that address the recommendations of the recent report by the Ontario Civilian Police Commission. There is new leadership, policy and procedure in place to ensure effective governance and a healthy and positive workplace that inspires confidence by the members of the community. On this slide, we've listed some of the most pressing safety issues. I'd like to share just a few statistics with you. Firearms. We've had 43 shootings in Durham Region so far this year, an increase of 19%. Auto theft. Last year, we saw a decrease in the region, and that is continuing so far in 2025. However, the rate of vehicle theft in Durham is still much higher than it was 5 years ago. There have been about 900 vehicles stolen so far in 2025. Mental health. Apprehensions under the Mental Health Act increased more than 8% in the most recent reporting year. The average number of apprehensions is almost 10 per day. It is very clear that inadequate care is being provided those suffering from mental illness and addictions in our communities. Intimate partner violence. These crimes have also been increasing. In 2024, there were 1,637 violent domestic incidents, and we're on the same pace this year. The violence takes a huge toll on victims and their families. Roadway safety. The safety of our streets continues to be a priority, and for the DRPS. We're pleased that motor vehicle collisions are down by about 2%, but very much remain concerned about impaired driving. There have been almost 700 reports of impaired driving this year, with more than 100 repeat offenders. Quite frankly, this is unacceptable and we need to do better. On this slide, you'll find information about how to find us. Our website includes a wealth of information, including annual reports, the strategic plan, diversity plan, policies, budgets, details about our meetings, including agendas and minutes. The board meetings usually take place on the third Tuesday of the month at 8:30 at Regional Council Chambers in Whitby. It's also live streamed, calendars on our website, and we welcome you and members of the public to be there in person or watch the meetings online. This closes our presentation, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you. Just to clarify, it's questions to yourself and anyone behind you, or is it just to yourself?
No, anybody that's here, and probably the chair usually speaks for the board, and we have the service here to answer any specific crime-related questions.
Appreciate that. Looking at council, the committee, any questions? Councillor Henry.
Thank you. First question is, I heard this rumor. Is it true that you guys have badges, that the service board carries a badge? Is that correct?
Our badges are very explicit that say board member. I don't carry it. It's in a.
But it's something that's provided to every board member, correct, upon onboarding?
That's correct, and they're handed back in once our terms are finished.
I would assume so. Yes, yes. Just had to ask while you were here. Just thought of that. I wanted to ask you about, you mentioned that every service board member went through a DEI training. Where is that done? Is that done in-house, or is somebody brought in to do that?
We have online training that's provided through the Ontario, the province of Ontario. It's a very interactive program around all of our training modules, which requires, I think we had to get over 80% to pass. If you fail a module, you have to start from the beginning. There's no catch up to try and get that answer correct. So it's an online, but it's interactive with lots of videos and questions along the way and some multiple choice. And personally, I thought it was a very, very effective training.
And is that like an hour-long session? Is it, could you speak more to it?
The whole module takes about 12 hours to complete.
The whole module. And is that once a year there's a refresher course, or is that like, what is your term? Sorry, let me ask you this.
Okay.
What is your term on the Police Services Board, any one person's term? And then how often is that training provided?
The training that my term coincides with the municipal election cycle. So my term finishes at the end of 2026 when the new council comes in. The provincial appointees, they may be appointed up to 3 years, and it's up to the province to make a determination whether somebody gets reappointed, or and then they make the decision about who joins the board. Your other question about training, we had the initial training. Our board in particular has a requirement that's made public for a minimum of 20 hours of continuing education a year, which is reported in our meetings. As one of the reports, I think I would say on average we're well over 100 hours per person. I think it's pretty significant that we have a commitment from the board to make sure that we're continuing to learn. And the province has not done any additional requirement beyond the initial. So we've taken it upon ourselves. We're also members of the Ontario Association of Police Service Boards, who have a very strong training component and do lots of webinars and ongoing education around governance.
So your initial DI training is that 12-hour course?
Well, it's a 12 hours. Diversity and inclusion is part of it. It's also it's a comprehensive governance training program. It's not just diversity.
It's not specific. It's an overall
welcome
module. Aboard, and this is what you need to know. And in that part of that one 12-hour section is a spot on DEI, and we'll talk about it.
Yes.
Okay. So when you talk about the 20 hours overall over the 4-year term.
Well, we do minimum 20 hours per year.
Minimum 20 hours, but not on DEI. That's on just training in general.
In general.
Okay. So is there ever, I guess I'm getting at, like, you know, as a municipality, we have a fabulous, we call it EDI now, EDI department that is always there for us and has been woven into everything we do. And I'm just wondering, from a police board perspective, you don't have like staff on board that help you with that on the daily. You're not in training constantly throughout the year. You've got that like one piece at the beginning. And if you choose to go get extra training on your own through that 20 hours you're allotted, you can, but it's not mandated, correct?
The specific area of focus is not mandated. We have much exposure to diversity through a lot of the work that DRPS does. We participate in a lot of their education as well. We're often invited to be a participant in their initiatives. So I don't know, Sean, if you want to add anything to that.
Mayor Collier, did you want to add anything to that with regards to the DEI training specifically?
Well, first, it's not a small bit that you mentioned, or it's an entire module. is based on diversity, as well as there's another one on Indigenous. It's very, very in-depth, and as Karen said, it's a long process, and it's not like you can set it up and walk away or something. If you miss one thing, you start all over again. It's a very in-depth process, and you cannot even serve on the board until you've completed it, and it's through it's from the province of Ontario through the Inspector General, relevant to community policing, police, to the new act.
But how much of that time, like, is it like 20 minutes in there, an hour?
Oh, no, there's at least 2 to 3 hours worth of the 12 is based on that type of information. As well as what Karen was saying, there's a lot of different conferences and ongoing training that we go through. If you check out the agendas that are put out, I think quarterly we post how many hours each board member has spent. And you're right, it's generally well over 100 hours. And when we go to a lot of these different seminars and conferences, there are a lot of other modules throughout these that deal with diversity, with hiring, challenges in hiring, because one of the things that we are really challenged with is hiring diverse members of our force. And trying to figure out, we have a fairly significant application of people that identify as non-white, maybe 70+%, but then maybe only 10% of the graduates fit that, and why is that? So we do a lot of that information and dig really deep into it.
And do you get as deep into the equity part? Because I noticed like you're pinpointing the diversity and the DEI, and is the equity part a part that is also looked at?
For the board members, we have our diversity policy that we are required to establish under the new act. We also are governed by the one that the region put together as far as hiring, and we have certain targets that we strive to achieve. I have personally reached out to the Solicitor General as far as, Karen is appointed by Regional Council. I'm appointed by Regional Council. We have 3 provincially appointed people where we right now have an opening, and asked them to specifically focus on, first of all, qualifications, but diversity, because one of the people whose term just ended was recognized was diverse, and I asked for him to stay, because it is that important going forward, but also for continuity. So we have no say who the provincial appointees are, but I have written the letters requesting that the focus be made in those areas. To the board level, remember, we're the 30,000-foot view. We're not the people on the ground we're the oversight of the entire board, so of the entire department. It might be beneficial, I don't know, put the chief on the spot to talk about what's being done at the ground level.
And I have no problem hearing from the chief. I always welcome hearing from the chief. But I was more concerned, like when we talk about the board and we look at the overview that's been given in this presentation today, and we talk about what the board responsibilities are, and we look at, what that looks like and what they have oversight on, I really wanted to hear from board members about that piece, about what training they've had, and where do we, before we bring up the chief, which I always welcome to hear from, where do we see what courses have been logged by the board members? Is that something that's public or no?
Sorry, Councilor Henry, you only have a minute left. I'm giving you an extra 5 minutes, so just so you know. So can you just make sure whatever your next comment, no, I've given you another 5.
Yeah.
Can you make sure the next question is your last one? So is this what you want your last question to be?
Yes, I do.
Okay, great.
Yes, I do. I really do.
My understanding, it is part of the public agenda and should be on the DRPS website.
Yeah, we get a report every month from the executive assistant in the board office, and just to clarify what additional courses we've taken, and it's a cumulative report. Not sure if that is made public, but I don't think there's any reason it can't be made public, so that people understand exactly what webinars and courses we have been taking.
It would be very good for the public to see that. I'm just giving you that feedback.
So Mr. Clancy will take note.
Yeah, it's very important when we're looking at the public supporting the police and having confidence in our police and our police services board, that they know and understand what education pieces that you have taken since being appointed, right? So I think it's important.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Tyler Morton.
Thank you, Chair. Really appreciate Ms. Fisher being here today and for your service to the board and everyone coming here today. So in 2018, in our little world, it was a big deal to run on a police station as part of the suite of services in our municipality. And I know since that time, and certainly since our new chief came on board, there's been a lot of work, a lot of attention, a lot of, you know, everything that comes into bringing a bricks and mortar building to fruition in 2025, 2026. So I'm wondering if you can just talk about that, where we are in the process. I keep hearing we're getting close.
I will give that to Chief Morera.
Thank you so much for the question. We are very close. I'll start off with that. So we're in the due diligence stage right now of finalizing a deal. I expect that by the time we come to regional council for budget discussions later this week, that we should have, you know, an answer there. Obviously, this is not in our hands at this point. It's with the region at this point who conducts the due diligence. But I'm very optimistic that very shortly we'll be able to announce it to you and more importantly to our communities.
That's great. And a quick follow-up, Chair, if I may. I was going to say, will it be a, you know, layman's terms, a full-on police station? Because we've had boutique, you know, set up stations around town throughout the years. I think Mayor Collier said there's been 3 or 4 that, you know, since you've been here. 3, yeah. So is it going to be a full service police station?
Yes, it is. That is our intention. Obviously, when you consider that about 53% of the time that an officer leaves the Pickering station, that they are actually in Ajax conducting, you know, some sort of policing action, delivering some policing action. The reality is that Ajax and Pickering are both growing at a dramatic rate in terms of density, and that presents some challenges, things that we need to get a foothold in right now so that we can best address it. And the other thing as well is what we're trying to do, and we have been successful thus far, is institute more community-based policing, proactive patrols. You know, we've increased our proactive patrols in Ajax by 75% over 2024. And so we will continue to make those investments. And when we're rooted here, actually home, Ajax is our home, we're going to be able to conduct more of those just because we're going to have more officers who can dedicate it. At the same time, I deliver a regional service, so I have to think about the impacts that has in Pickering, and it'll also improve our ability to put more officers in Pickering as well to address the growth that's happening there as well. Not a concern for this council, but a concern nonetheless for us.
No, West Durham, you know, overall, like it'll serve that better. Okay, thank you very much. And I do realize for those listening at home, as we often say, these are huge numbers, but I don't think it's a nice to have. I think it's a need to have, and you've spoken to that today. So thanks for everything you do, and those are my questions, Chair. Thank you.
Anybody else from committee? Seeing none, Chief, I have a few questions, and I promise to keep it shorter than we normally do. Just in terms of, so we use the phrase community policing a lot, and I was wondering, does DRPS have like a standardized definition of what community policing represents?
Well, in the general sense, it's outlined in the Community Safety and Policing Act for sure. I think it's a nuanced conversation. Different communities have different needs, and so we must be adaptable to that. And this has everything to do with from who we hire to how we train to the deployment of our people depends a great deal on the community that we're serving. And so, you know, we don't deliver one service, we deliver a suite of services. And so we will continue to understand what is the dynamics in each community and how we can best support it, and then develop programming that not only delivers that, but measures that so that we know that we're hitting the needs of each community.
Does the DRPS offer, for lack of a better phrase, trauma-based services? So let's say I was the victim of a carjacking, or there's a series of carjackings in my neighborhood, just an example from 10 years ago. Does the DRPS bring in, you know, crisis counselors or uniformed officers to kind of field the concerns of the community to ensure that they feel more at peace? Because, you know, it is a very traumatic experience to experience something like that.
Absolutely, and I'm going to attempt to answer your question. on a general sense, with the way that you presented your question, no, we're not in the crisis, delivery of that way. But we do earmark certain offenses that when we are investigating, we have people who have specialized training, for instance, sexual assault or domestic violence investigators are specially trained, child abuse investigators, specially trained and are trauma informed in terms of how they deliver it. The reality is that we rely very heavily on our victim services of Durham Region, who deliver those services to best support victims in sort of the day-to-day calls. I don't mean to minimize that if that comes off that way, but there's definitely an impact. And I often tell the story about living right here in Ajax, having my home broken into when I was 10 years old, and the impact that had on me. And we didn't have those services back then. This is so in terms of the specialized trauma support, we don't deliver that per se.
So the regional councillors on this committee received the budget. Can you just say what the ask is from the police this year? Because I believe it was higher than the initially projected. Is that correct?
What was projected or what the regional guideline?
What the council dictated, so to speak.
So yeah, the regional guideline was set, and I must add, not with any feedback from us or input from us. I'm still not sure how that number is set, but my worry is not about what regional council has set. My worry is to deliver adequate and effective policing. That's the responsibility I have under the Act. And so I present, what the ask is with the board. The board's role in that is to go line by line and ensure that the business cases support the strategic plan, meet all of the different governance that exists, and most importantly, measures against the general applicable standard, which is how adequate and effective policing is measured. And in addition, and what's unique to our board this year is that we have the Ontario Civilian Police Commission report, the OCPC report, that outlines many of the areas in which investments ought to have been made in different structures changed. So all of these things factor into the budget that the board approved. Our original submission was in and around 15%. We have since been able to look and prioritize different investments, and we are at 12.43%. The 0.343. I may be wrong, maybe 4.2, but we're right in that area right now. What we haven't compromised is we've been able to defer many things. What we haven't compromised is the complement of both sworn and civilian members that we need in order to meet the growing demands of our region and be more proactive.
And Mayor Collyer wants to jump in?
Just want to add, what everybody's referring to is the region's target. And the thing about a target is if the target is made and it's not realistic, you're not going to reach the target. And we're not budgeting towards a just made up number, which is exactly what this target is. I made those comments at regional headquarters during the budget meeting. I said, we're happy to go back and look at our budget, and we have shaved another 1%, almost 2% off since that discussion, but I was very, very clear at the budget meeting where this guideline target was set that we're not going to meet that target. It's not realistic, and instead of saying, what is it, 9-point-something% is the guideline, which is almost just the annualization of the staff that we hired last year. That's a status quo budget. And then have people come back and be angry later because the real number that council approved was higher. Set the target reasonably, and we told them what the target was. And we'll come back with that number. But don't set us up for failure, which is what the region has done. And I told them that flat out at the budget meeting. So I just want to make that clear. And I was also just made aware of something today, which I find very frustrating. We've been working with the region collaboratively for 6 months on this budget, if not longer. We just got the document, 4 days ago or Friday?
It's Friday.
Friday. And they took our numbers, revamped them, gave it back and said, you guys have got 4 days to let us know if there's any changes. They're dealing with the regional budget differently than the region is dealing with every other allocation of the regional budget. There's even so much as text at the bottom of every page that is different from every other one. They've separated it out, and they're dealing with it very differently. And I find that very frustrating, and I just wanted to point that out to this council and anybody who may be watching. It's one thing to set a guideline and a target, but that needs to be realistic, and we told them what that was and what needed to be done, and we've also told them what would need to be removed from the budget to reach the target that's been set. And that will basically be my opening next, was it Thursday, our budget next week? Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. No, I'm not.
No, it's Thursday.
But this week, sorry, this week. That's what I'm gonna open with, is no, we didn't meet it because it was an unrealistic target, and I told you it was an unrealistic target. This is what the real numbers are to provide adequate and effective policing in Durham.
Thank you, Mayor Collier. Thank you, Chief. I just have one last question for Board Member Fisher, please. So you're 3 years into your term. I've heard from the chair ad nauseum. Just from your perspective, what do you think is one of the biggest challenges DRPS has in your experience?
Oh, I thought you were going to ask what the biggest challenge for being a board member is.
I mean, obviously it's dealing with this guy, but I mean.
I think the breadth of responsibility and the our new normal with adequate and effective, and making sure that the definition around that is something that we deliver on. You know, with the inspectorate now in place, I think the role of the board is challenged to make sure that we know enough from a oversight perspective, and support the chief and what the needs of the service are, and finding that balance. It's a big job being on the board. It's many hours, and you know, when the opportunity for somebody new comes up next year, I hope that you get some great applicants.
Great. Thank you so much. And to you and to everyone behind you, thank you for your service. Appreciate it. Seeing no other questions from council, we will end this presentation. Thank you. Do we need to pause right in and go right to it? Okay, great. We are back to GGC presentations. We're at PSA-2025-10, Implementation and Business Registration Program. Director McLarty, do you want to set the table? Nope. That's what they're doing.
Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon, Council. I hope
Do you want to just tilt the mic to your...
Yes.
Perfect. Thanks so much.
Perfect. Thanks, everyone. I hope you're doing well and appreciate the opportunity to present today. Very excited to share with you the business registration initiative we have been working on, powered by Ajax. Through this program, the Business Engagement and Support Team will collect more comprehensive data on our local businesses than ever before. This information will allow us to uncover fresh, creative, and impactful economic development opportunities that would otherwise remain out of sight. But Powered by Ajax is more than a registration tool. It's about opening new pathways while offering premium services to our community. Before diving into what this initiative unlocks, it's important for us to understand why we believe it's necessary. One of our biggest challenges today is straightforward. We don't have enough business data. Our current database is very limited in the fields we collect, including business names, addresses and NAICS code, descriptions and tags, and contact information. The reality is this is simply not enough for modern economic planning. With such limited insights, our abilities to understand who our businesses are, what they need, how we can advocate for them, and how we can custom tailor our supports effectively is significantly hindered. The solution, though, is clear. We need better, richer, and more complete data. With enhanced data collection, we can unlock opportunities that were previously out of reach. Better data allows us to directly address those most pressing challenges and empowers us to conduct economic forecasting by anticipating trends and guide planning, insights and opportunities to identify growth sectors and market gaps, funding advocacy to build stronger cases for grants and external support, inclusive growth to better serve equity-deserving and underrepresented businesses, business retention and expansion, and performance benchmarking. Fortunately, the pathway forward is clear and to address these gaps, and that's where Powered by Ajax comes in. This program is designed to capture business data at scale including those small, home-based, and hard-to-reach businesses, while offering tangible benefits to the participating and encourage participation. Powered by Ajax is a registration-based initiative with a quick and simple sign-up and a one-time fee of just $25. Once registered, businesses will gain access to a secured online dashboard where they can provide detailed information, including general business details, contact information, ownership and governance information, workforce composition, financial profiles, business operations, and import and export activity. This richer data allows us to better support our businesses and plan for long-term economic growth. Beyond the applicable value of improved data, the business will receive a suite of perks, including the aforementioned business profile dashboard, an official Powered by Ajax plaque for display, enhanced listings within the Ajax business directory, including verification badges and priority on search placement. They'll get profile matching for grants and funding and external opportunities, and invitations to exclusive events and networking opportunities. These incentives ensure the program provides immediate visible value to those participating. As far as tracking goes, we'd love to have 33% of businesses signed up by year 1, 66% in year 2, and 100% by year 3. These targets will be redefined as we get a clearer understanding of the true number of businesses out there in Ajax, and as well as the program, how it's being adopted. The revenue generated will primarily go towards communications, marketing, and events. Most of the back-end infrastructure is already built out and will require minimal staff time and resources to finish up. You can expect this program to operate with low ongoing costs. And to kick things off, this is just a temporary placeholder, but we will be hosting an informational event early in Q1. The purpose will be to introduce the program and engage those small, new, and home-based businesses. We'll have short presentations, vendor booths, and networking opportunities. That'll give chances to have those informal conversations and showcase the program benefits. And yeah, we're excited. We invite council to join us and be a part of this exciting start. That concludes the presentation. Hope you're as excited as we are, and Powered by Ajax is meant to be more than a registration, but a partnership between the town and our business community. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Councillor Henry.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Marangos, did I say your?
Yeah, that's good.
I got it? Okay, excellent. Sorry, I always call you by your first name when I see you. Very excited for your presentation. I read a lot of presentations over the last 3 years, and when I saw this, I was like, yes, finally. I think this is a really good thing for us. I've seen all the hard work your department's done, and watching to see the events that you've tried to do, even for the restaurant guide, when we looked at that, we had restaurants coming to myself afterwards saying, you know, I wanted to be part of that. I wish I could have been part of that. Well, I wish we had a database we could have pulled you from to be part of that.
Exactly.
And that's exactly what this will do. This will help with all future projects going forward. I can see where this will be invaluable in many, many ways. Let me know any way I can help in my ward to reach out to the businesses to get them signed up. So some questions I do have is, what does this look like if somebody doesn't want to sign up? Is it mandatory? What are we looking at here?
Yeah, through the chair. It is not mandatory. We hope that we get everyone signed up because there's a lot in it for them as well. And like you mentioned, we'll be able to better reach out, but by no means is it mandatory for people to sign up.
Okay, and what are we looking at offering as far as, I'm thinking about my ward too, very diverse ward, and the businesses, restaurants in that area, little supermarkets, things like that. What are we looking at offering as far as that will appeal to them? Like the type of events that we might use this data for that could appeal to them when we're doing an event?
Well, we're happy to discuss with you privately as well what we can do to set up events, and once this is live and we have that database, we can analyze what's happening in Ward 2 with that specific sector. We can see how trends are going and where they need support and custom tailor them that way. So whatever we end up doing, we're obviously very open to suggestions, but we'll be able to have the evidence to back up why we're doing it is, I think, the important thing.
Everything you're saying makes me happy.
Good.
Yeah, I really, I'm looking forward to seeing what yourself, what Mina, what others in your department are going to do with this tool. And I would be more than happy to encourage his businesses to sign up. And, oh, we see somebody approaching. Yes, hello.
Just through the chair to Councillor Henry, just to add to what Michael was mentioning, one of the other things we can do for business owners where maybe English isn't their first language or where there is a language barrier or some other kind of gap, the town offers translation services, and we are certainly willing, as part of the strategic initiatives team, we have a multidisciplinary group that includes equity, diversity, and inclusion and community supports. So working closely with the others on our team, Michael will be able to effectively serve pretty much anybody that is a part of this program.
Everything you say makes me happy and warms my heart. Thank you. That's great. Thank you very much.
Regional Councillor Crawford.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. How do you keep up to date on this? So, you know, like the worst case scenario is somebody goes in to look for a business and it's no longer there, but they got it off our website. So how do you intend to manage the people who sign up?
Yeah, so we'll be doing a yearly, to everyone who is an active member, we'll be doing yearly reach outs through emails and marketing materials to make sure that they're renewing their profile. So every year they'll have a chance to confirm whether they're in business, what metrics have changed within their profile dashboard. And then if there's a change of ownership, anything like that, we're going to be making sure that every year they'll be directly contacted to fill in those gaps and let us know if they're still in business and operating.
Because I noted that in the summertime, I believe the region hires students, if I'm not mistaken, to go around to all the businesses with their little iPads, and they update any information to like literally all the businesses. Is that something we can do through a student work placement?
I think it's worth.
Or do we need to? Is that like duplicating efforts?
Through the chair to Regional Councillor Crawford, to confirm, the region does this work already, and they share the list with us every year. So that's a second touch point. So
Okay.
what Michael's talking about is the annual outreach that we will do, and then the region also provides us with their data that they collect over the summer. It isn't as comprehensive as what we'll be doing with this program. There are some very specific questions, especially when we're looking to tailor the types of information that we have to support from a funding perspective, some of the forecasting, sector-specific work. So that will be something that we do, but it will certainly be cross-referenced with what the region already does.
Would there be an opportunity for us to ask if businesses are interested in participating in events through sponsorship on this? That way you know, because lots of people do want to do that, they just don't know the avenue to figure it out.
Through the chair to Regional Councillor Crawford, absolutely. I think any additional contact touch points that we have with businesses, the better. And looking forward in the new year, reviewing our approach to sponsorships is something that is high on PSA's radar, as well as in partnership with Recreation and Culture. So that this will be a tool as part of that review as well, for sure.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Good work.
Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Chair Lee. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for the report, Mr. Morango. It's very exciting. So is this meant to be like parallel to services that the Ajax Pickering Board of Trade would offer?
It's, we're happy to work in tandem with them and partner with them in terms of promotion and everything like that. But this is a high focus on the data collection side of it. So because of that, we have different outcomes and initiatives. All of the data uses we'll be gathering from this will be done internally and for us. But of course, yeah, there will be networking opportunities and stuff that there will be a cross between the two of us.
Okay. So you're going to collect the data, the town will collect the data, and then I believe one of your slides said how better data adds value. So I guess you take this, you will break it down into these different categories, and then the goal would be to reach out to these registrants and say, we have analyzed what you've given us, and we can tell you that you could qualify for this grant, or like how will you use this?
Yeah, through the chair. So when it comes to the grants and funding opportunities, if there are certain outlines for eligible businesses, say there was some for the steel and aluminums that came through Ontario this year, and they were only eligible for businesses making over $2 million with 10 full-time employees. Right now, we don't know.
You don't know who that is.
Who qualifies for that. So this would be a way for us to sort through them and have a very quick and immediate outreach. So it speeds up our processes and through having the data. So in terms of funding and grant opportunities, that's one example of how it would help us.
Okay, because I'm guessing, I don't know, but at your launch events, when you gather all these businesses together, there might be that question of how is this any different than if I pay my Board of Trade fee? Like, what is it that Ajax is going to give to me?
Through the chair to Councillor Bauer, I think one of the other important points comparing this program to the Board of Trade is the Board of Trade, I think their membership, again, I'm not presupposing, but it's usually hovers between around 600 and 800 businesses across Ajax and Pickering.
Right.
And the cost of entering the Board of Trade is substantially higher than our one-time fee of $25. And a lot of businesses join the Board of Trade for networking, absolutely, that's a part of it. But they also join because they have access to things like benefits, they can get access to sort of shared services amongst multiple smaller businesses. So as Michael mentioned, while there'll be a tool in ensuring that we can reach the members of the Ajax Pickering Board of Trade that are Ajax businesses and do some cross-promotional events, the work that we'll be doing with this is different and allows us to reach our businesses for our purposes.
Perfect, thank you. No, this is very exciting. Happy to see it and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, those are my questions.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Councillor Tyler Morin.
Thank you, Chair. I like the suit, Michael. Look good.
Thank you. Just trying to look like you.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever seen you in a suit. So the $25 seems reasonable. Do you know if other municipalities are doing that? Like, because that's the thing, right? When you talk to a business owner.
Yeah. Nothing of this variety is really being done, at least within the Durham region.
Like a pioneer thing. Pioneering thing.
Yeah. So it's new, but we're very excited to give it a shot and see what people think.
Right. Just curious, like, how did you come up with that number? Just figured, if there's 1,000 businesses, $25,000, it just helps. And that money is going to be used for what? If they ask, because they're going to ask.
Sure, through the chair. It helps cover all of the ancillary costs that we have planned, like the plaques and also the marketing materials that will go out, because we do plan on doing some physical marketing for this. But we just also think it's a fair price to enact in order to service those events that we're going to be hosting. And there's also a level of legitimacy to it. And we think that's a good price point for that.
It's a nominal fee, but it puts, sometimes you charge something and puts a bit more value on it. Like they paid for something.
That's the thought.
A little bit more ownership. Thank you.
Councillor Henry for a second time.
Thank you. So I just wanted to point out, when we're talking about small businesses and how this can be invaluable, a lot of the events that Regional Councillor Crawford and myself go to happen to be female events or female business events. And something that was not known in the town until we started promoting it was, as a home-based business, you can have a small certificate. You can have a certificate for your renewal of your business, if it's an anniversary, if you're opening your business. Like, I think a lot of times the small business homeowner, and particularly female, within the town of Ajax, seems to not be part of that network. And I think that this programming that you're doing will help bring them into that. And I think this will help with the metrics and the data and everything you're trying to collect. And I see so much value in what you're doing, so much value. It's like almost every conversation I've had with your department over the last 2 years has just come out in a project. And I want to thank you for listening and hearing the needs of the small business community. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, why are we only charging $25 once? 25 is a pretty nominal fee, I agree with that, but I mean, if they're going to get value from this, shouldn't this be an annual fee?
I think we're pushed away from an annual fee because, there will be continuous rollout of features and benefits, and then it pushes away people who are maybe early adopters and champions. And then as well, the goal of is not to generate a bunch of revenue, but to supplement the cost of our ongoing operations for it. And I think we're just afraid that an ongoing fee will push people away from it. And at the end of the day, we have to find the balance between getting some revenue to support the project and also not pushing people away from signing up in the first place.
I mean, our goal is always to generate non-tax revenue, but I get your point. There's flexibility though, right? Like, let's just say there's a lot of adoption and we poll the members and they don't mind $25 because they see the value. There's flexibility that we could make this a subscription-based service?
Yeah, we're not opposed.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. Seeing no other questions from council, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next presentations, we have 6.2 surplus land inventory. We have Christy McLarty, Director of Public Strategic Affairs, and/or Cass Brownridge, Manager of Strategic Initiatives.
Those things. Okay, thank you all, and if you wouldn't mind bearing with me for a moment, I may have to log into something at some point as part of this presentation, so I do apologize in advance. So I'm here today to talk to council about the long-awaited, much-discussed public-owned land inventory, which was an initiative that was approved by and funded through the Housing Accelerator Fund. And also is action item number 20 in the town's 2023 Housing Action Plan. So the purpose of this exercise was to map all of the publicly owned land in Ajax, and that included lands owned by other levels of government and the broader public sector. So in this case, that includes broader public sector. We've included Metrolinx, the school boards, the TRCA, the hospital. So we have completed that work, and the intention was to identify a variety of types of land. And so the language that we use here is pretty intentional, and I think it's important to understand that there's a difference between underutilized, vacant, surplus. They all have different specific meanings. So today, the project has found all of them. We have found underutilized, vacant, surplus, and currently fully used lands. But we've looked at it a little closer with the intention of repurposing or finding land parcels that can be repurposed for housing development. And of course, that includes affordable housing. So what I will do here, if folks will bear with me, is I will log in to my account here. I didn't want it to kick me out earlier, so that is why.
Ms. Brownridge, while you're doing that, Councillor Bowers just informed me we need to endorse the previous presentation. So going to get a mover to endorse. We have Councillor Bauer. We will start the vote to endorse the because there was a recommendation. So I'm going to start that vote. Is that okay? Yeah. Okay, starting the vote. The suspense is killing me. Perfect. Thank you very much. And if you're ready.
Perfect. Thank you. Perfect. So what council will see here is a dashboard that shows all of the public properties, which is going to be a large number. You're going to see a map that will load up here. And you'll notice here that there is a ton of publicly owned land in Ajax. And it's we have a quick kind of crude breakdown by ward here. But what you'll see here is that there is an overwhelming amount of publicly owned land in Ajax, outside of, private property, which we know, but every dot here represents a piece of publicly owned land. Now that could include everything from a road allowance, it includes everything from an existing park, it includes the town hall and library campus footprint that we're on right now. And what we realized here is there's about 817 parcels representing 14.9 million square feet of publicly owned land in Ajax. But what that means for this exercise is that we needed to narrow that down substantially. So we looked at lands that were not zoned environmentally protected or owned by the TRCA as a first draft. We looked at if they were adequately sized, and we looked to see if they were vacant or underutilized buildings on properties or large properties with a building on it already. So with that, we did identify 16 locations as potential sites for potential new housing opportunities, representing about 32 hectares. And so you'll see here that the property owners include the town with 5 sites, the region, Lake Ridge Health, Metrolinx, Ministry of Transportation, and the Durham District School Board. And now we get to watch me log into the next thing here, because I did not want it to log me out. Perfect. Oh. There we go. So here are the properties. We have the 16 properties mapped here. And these are shown in a variety of different ways. So you'll see the red swaths are town-owned, the blue is owned by the region, green DDSB, et cetera. So with these properties, which of course include, as I mentioned, about 32 hectares and 6 different owners, the town will be taking some steps to now facilitate what that looks like. So for the town-owned properties, we're going to do an in-depth review of those sites to understand the real potential. So it's kind of past our first level, and now we'll be looking at what we do next. So number 1, that does include, if we're looking to sell that land, there's a process that needs to be followed to declare it a surplus. And ultimately, at the end of the day, the biggest piece for a town-owned land is that we need to find a development partner as part of that, because the town, as we know, does not build housing. For the other owners, what we have done is the first conversation we had was with the region of Durham. And I do want to highlight that we did sit down with the region. We shared the properties that we identified that they owned. And as a result of that conversation, I'm pleased to share with council that the region will be including the site at Achilles and Harwood that they own currently as part of their proposal to the Build Canada Homes program, which is a federal grant program intended at bringing more affordable housing projects to the 2 different parts across Canada. So as a result of that conversation and advocacy from staff, we were able, and members of council as well, I don't want to understate that as a result of that, we are moving forward, or the region is moving forward with that. The next step is for the other properties. So that includes lands owned by the school board, that's owned by the hospital, by Metrolinx, the MTO. We will be sending a formal letter from the mayor to invite a discussion and conversations with town staff. And that is looking at us basically saying, listen, we've identified these lands. Do you have plans for them? Or if you do not, in the kind of near short term, can you be open to the concept of partnering to build some housing on that site? So that is the stage that we're at right now. Letters will go out following this council meeting to the property owners, and we will be facilitating those conversations. So staff felt it was necessary to provide this brief update to council. We have shared the update with CMHC. It is a completed initiative under our Housing Accelerator Fund, and now we are looking to really bring those partnerships to fruition. So I'm happy to take any questions and further discuss the initiative.
Thank you for the presentation. Councillor Henry.
Thank you. So first of all, great job on this. Another exciting report from your department that I was looking forward to. Long time waiting for. I'd like to go back to that little map, and if you would tell me what are the 2 schools that we've identified?
So with DDSB, what we have identified are the property at 2 Williamson, at Harwood and Williamson.
Yes.
And the other property is actually the amount of land between St. Bernadette's and Ajax High School and the park that's in behind. There is a lot of land available on that space, a lot of green space that we'd just like to understand and start a conversation with the board if there's any interest, especially with the neighboring St. Bernadette's Church, if there's any interest in looking at partnership for housing development there.
Excellent, but Castlefield is not on that map anywhere.
Correct, not on this map.
Because I, have told the province if they try to sell that school land, I will chain my body somewhere there and until that is not for sale. So with that said, I'd like to bring forth a motion right now, and I believe the clerks have it, and it can be brought up on the screen. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Crawford, that public and strategic affairs staff be directed to engage with nonprofit and faith-based organizations.
Councilor Henry, I'm sorry. I'm just going to stop you there. You have two speakers behind you who may want to ask questions without having to address your amendment first, if that's okay. So I acknowledge you have an amendment. Can I let the other two speakers ask their questions before having to vote on your amendment, which becomes at the front of the order?
I think that's fair, as long as no other amendment gets in before mine. I'm good with that.
That's fine.
All right.
Councilor Dias.
Thank you. Just curious to know, were any of the properties owned by the federal government? We have a lot of railway lines around.
Through the chair, the lands were owned by CN, but from what we saw in a cursory glance, they were mostly related directly to the rail lines themselves. But otherwise, as owned by the federal government, we were not able to identify any lands that were owned by the federal government.
So then would you know who owns the land right at Hunt and Dowdy on the south side that's fenced in, where the buses park behind? That was my understanding, that was a piece of land owned by CN for storage.
Through the chair, absolutely. Staff will look into that for sure. One thing that was just notable as we went through this process, over the years, since even before Ajax was Ajax, property owners' names have changed substantially. So when you look at even what the town-owned lands are, they're captured under the corporation of the town of Ajax, the town of Ajax, Ajax. And so it is possible that CN does own that. It just maybe we didn't know how they spelled their name at the time. So absolutely, we'll look into the ownership of that and can get back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Bauer.
Thank you, Chair Lee. Thank you very much for this report. Very interesting. And it's nice to hear about the region and the property at Achilles. So on your slide 5, it says 16 locations as potential sites for new housing opportunities, but I only count 12 on the table.
Through the chair, there are absolutely 16. I will revise the deck and share the list with council.
Okay, thank you. That was my only question. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions from committee? If not, Councilor Henry, you had an amendment.
Thank you again. I'm back. Okay. Before I read my amendment, I also want to say that the piece on Achilles, I know that your department has worked very hard and had lots of conversations with regional staff, not just recently, but over the last couple of years. And I just want to thank you and your department for all the work you've done, because that's a hard file, what you've been trying to accomplish with regards to housing and what our part looks like from the town. So I just want to send a big shout out. Your work and your team's work has not gone unnoticed. Thank you. Again, moved by myself, second by Regional Councillor Crawford. 1, that public strategic affairs staff be directed to engage with nonprofit and faith-based organizations that own property in Ajax to determine interest in expanding land uses to include housing and other community amenities. And 2, that any meaningful partnerships continue to be pursuant for opportunities to increase housing supply in Ajax. Thank you.
So no seconders needed at GGC. It is not an amendment, it is a motion. Thank you, Councillor Henry. On the motion, we have Councillor Tyler Morin.
Thank you, Chair. So the old, just so I'm straight, we would potentially approach nonprofits, faith-based organization, church, shelters that own the property and say, hey, would you be open to XYZ? Is that correct?
Through Regional Councillor Lee to Councillor Tyler Morin, that is staff's understanding of the motion, that we would look at the property owners in Ajax that are potentially have large amounts of land where they may only be occupying their place of worship, may only be on a small portion of it, and there may be development opportunities. These groups, we understand, may not have the awareness of the opportunities that are available to them, whether that's funding or just general knowledge that the town staff
Okay.
can offer. So it's that outreach.
Yeah, and I see, I mean, we can do that now without this motion, but this directs public and strategic affairs staff to, you know, hey, we should explore this, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Collier.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, just so I understand. Is this that any nonprofit or faith-based organizations that own property to see if they have any surplus land or to see if they're interested in developing on town land?
It would be for them to develop their own properties and add housing, as what I believe Councillor Henry is looking to do.
Okay, how much time and cost would be involved in doing this, reaching out to all of the nonprofit and faith-based organizations in Ajax?
Through the chair, it would be additional work. However, staff believe that through funding that we have available, either through the Housing Accelerator Fund or just generally speaking, the work that Public and Strategic Affairs is doing related to not-for-profits, our staff right now, as part of the Business Engagement and Support Team, are undergoing a not-for-profit business study to understand the needs of the not-for-profit community. So building on that work in 2026 would be a part of staff's work plan anyways. So this would be a housing-aligned connection to that.
Okay, but let me clarify, because I'm not interested in spending any more of our Housing Accelerator Fund money, especially if that's not budgeted, if I didn't understand you correctly.
That's correct, absolutely. So it would, what I mean when I say it's Housing Accelerator Fund, it would be if there were, you know, if there was a forum or a small event that was held, we would have access to those funds without touching our existing operating budget. But if there's it would be all managed through our existing budget process.
So there's no budget impact from this?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Dies.
Oh, thank you. Just to clarify, so are you looking at not-for-profit housing corporations then? Is that what this is sort of aimed at as well?
Through the chair, what I believe Councillor Henry's intention with this is to engage with nonprofit property owners. I think as part of the additional work that staff are doing on the land inventory and that outreach, facilitating conversations with not-for-profit housing developers is ongoing work that is happening, whether that is through the Ontario Association or the region's network itself, having those conversations about not-for-profit housing development in Ajax, either on town-owned land or as partnerships, that's something that is ongoing. This would be for not-for-profit organizations that own the property that they operate on.
So that would be a housing property, I take it. So how many not-for-profit housing organizations do we have in Ajax? Do we know?
Through the chair, I'd have to get back to you on that.
Thank you.
Seeing no other comments or questions on the motion, we'll put it to vote. Thank you. Moving on to closed session now. Before we may not have to go into closed session. Does any member of committee require to go into closed session? Seeing none, I'm going to pull up the wording then. I believe, sorry, hold on. Thank you. So moved by, can I get a move for the motion? We see Councillor Tyler Morin. The council approved the following appointments to the Property Standards Animal Service Appeals Committee with membership to be in effect until the 28th of February 2027 or until their successors are appointed. Monifa Brooks. Any questions, comments from council? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. And that passes. No other items. Can I get a motion to adjourn some people's, I'll pick Mayor Collier as this could be your last December GGC meeting. Right? So, start the vote, please. Thank you very much. I will, and I will too.
Council's in session, please be seated.
That's loud.
This meeting of Ajax Council is being held in a hybrid meeting format with virtual and in-person participation by members of the public, staff, and council. This meeting is also being live streamed and may be viewed online at ajax.ca/live. A friendly reminder to all participants, please use your microphones at all times for the benefit of those participating in council chambers and joining remotely. I want to begin this meeting by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is situated within the traditional and treaty territory of the Mississaugas, more specifically, the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation, signatories of the Gunshot Treaty of 1788 and the Williams Treaties of 1923. This land is and will continue to be home to the Indigenous peoples. Let us acknowledge the mistakes and traumas of the past through authenticity and support truth and reconciliation. Let us engage and celebrate Indigenous communities by being leaders of action and acknowledging the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples and the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's recommendations towards truth and reconciliation. Let us keep these principles close as we continue towards truth and reconciliation and as we move forward with kindness and respect as a community. Does any member of council have any disclosure of pecuniary interest on matters on today's agenda? Seeing none. We have adoption of the minutes, moved by Councillor Tyler Moore and second by Councillor Crawford, that minutes of the regular meeting of council held on November 17, 2025 be adopted. Questions or comments, errors and omissions on the minutes? No? Please open the vote. That carries. To the clerk, were there any questions submitted online during question period? No. Does any member of the public here today have any questions on matters on today's agenda? Seeing none. Moving on to delegations, we've already had one presentation we had during General Government Committee. We moved it forward, so that is done. Moving on to correspondence. We have one item of correspondence pulled by Councillor Crawford. Councillor Crawford, please go ahead. Press your button. There you go.
Yeah, there's been, actually I received some feedback from a resident who has a business in Pickering Village. And this has to do with the fact that the region no longer is doing recycling, and it has now been moved by the province to the end-use producer and is being covered under the circular materials company. And changes have been made for these businesses that are concerning, really. There's 200 businesses in our town that are no longer eligible for recycling pickup. And they're being told that they need to just take it home. And so this is ridiculous, actually, and especially in the village because some of the businesses actually have residential on top. Therefore, if the truck is not coming down the village, then they're not even picking up the residential recycling. So this in essence will set us back 10 years in recycling. People will not take this home. They will end up putting it in the black bag. And I have an issue with that. So I want to endorse this letter, but I also would love to make some form of statement, and we don't have to do it at this meeting, but perhaps, I know that there has been some communication with the region to our business department. So I don't know, Cassie, do you want to chirp in here?
Thank you, Regional Councillor Crawford. So through the mayor, yes, staff are aware, and so we have cross-referenced the list of addresses that the region will no longer be servicing with the businesses themselves. So we have a sense of who the businesses are, where they are located, and we've also set up a tracking sheet. So what our staff are doing, and there's been discussions with customer service representatives, both in operations and corporate services, and with the recreation team, to ensure that any inquiry the town receives related to these changes is tracked and managed so that we can report back to the region on that. And as part of the Durham Economic Development Partnership, there was a meeting a couple of weeks ago where we discussed the changes, and we did formally advise Regional Works that we did we strongly recommended the communications of advising business owners to bring the recycling to their houses should be adapted as part of that. So it's something staff are monitoring, and we'll be happy to kind of collect some data on that to understand how the businesses in Ajax are being affected.
So they did communicate to the businesses, and this last round of pickup for recycling, at least through the village anyway, they actually took their blue bins too. So they no longer have their own blue bins. And it wasn't the business's blue bins, it was the resident that lived above the business. So like, I think there needs to be some recognition here that we actually have residents that live in the village that live on top of the businesses that still require this service. So I don't know, of course I can bring it to the region, but I mean, I think that I would love to have a formal statement from our council to say that this is, they need to be, it's more than just an address, right? These are residents that live there too, and they need to address it. Plus, it does affect the nonprofits, I believe. We've got a couple in the audience today. It affects our churches. It affects some of the businesses, I think, have an ability to be able to manage this just because of the nature of their business. But I do believe that the BIA, or the former BIA, the Pickering Village, is really gonna struggle through this. And I think it's wrong that we just say, well, we're not in the business, because I know that we extended our service when circular material came into play. I was still on Works. They had already said they're not going to do these small businesses, and so the region had extended their service to be able to help things go more seamlessly, with the expectation that we were hoping that circular material would take it over. And I believe they realized that the cost of doing recycling is much more than they anticipated. So this is where they've cut off people, is by saying, we're not going to be able to do it. So either the region has to absorb that into their budget, or we've got to figure out a way of doing it, because it's not going to come home. It's going to go in the black bag. And if we're not taking the cost up now, then we're going to end up taking the cost up when we have to expand the incinerator. So there's two options here. And I realize that you can't give me any answers, but I'm very frustrated by the fact that it just seems to be taken away with absolutely no solution other than take it home. And she was told that if she put it in the residents' recycling that lived above her, that she would be fined. So.
Councillor Crawford?
I
The
would.
motion is to endorse.
Yeah, I know, but I had a little bit more
motion.
to say than just endorse it. Anyway, I'm done. I'm obviously out of time.
Councillor Henry, as a seconder, did you want to speak to it before I go down the list?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's important that we recognize what Regional Councillor Crawford said. She spent a lot of time on this committee and knows the ins and outs of how this came to be. And more importantly, because she's dealing with Pickering Village, we do have a unique situation that we don't see as much in the rest of the town, where we do have residents living above businesses. And as such, it's affecting that area greatly, and there's been a lot of complaints about it. I've received a few complaints that I have had to forward over to her.
Councillor Henry,
Yes.
as I was trying to get Councillor Crawford back on track, I'm going to try and get you back on track.
Good
too.
luck.
This is a motion to endorse. So
but I think we're gonna-
speaking to the endorsing of the cell, and what you're talking about and what Councillor Crawford is talking about is something that we can do separately, which is write a letter to the province about the unintended consequences of end-user recycling, which we all knew there would be. We can do that too, then we can all have these comments, but for now, please speak to the motion.
All right, well, thank you for trying to get me back on track. So I'm waiting to see, I'm gonna let Regional Councillor Crawford take the lead to see if there will be a letter or if we're gonna go with a motion. And I'll just say that something has to be done about this, because there's gonna be a lot more folks unhappy once they realize what's going on. Thank you, and happy to endorse.
Councillor Lee.
Through the chair to the clerk, can you amend an endorsement? Or just like endorse or not, or receive? Is that the only option?
To Mr. Chair, you can also amend. It's just a motion that's on the floor, so if you'd like to add an additional clause, we can do that through an amendment.
So, I mean, I'd like to amend the endorsement to include a lot of what regional, I mean, can you put this in words or no?
Of course, I have.
Okay, so, but like an amendment? Yeah, so I mean, like, as you are crafting this amendment, I would also include that Circuit Materials, their customer service is not the greatest right now. So they missed my recycling just one side of the street this past weekend, and there was no one to contact, and it was incredibly frustrating for everybody. So I will leave it to Regional Councilor Crawford to amend if you'd like to amend. Thank you, Chair.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I can add. The correspondence that's been pulled today is about nonprofit organizations. So if there was additional amendments that did not have to do with nonprofit, I would suggest a notice of motion at a future meeting or something along those lines as well.
I was trying to get things to go that direction. Thank you for that clarification. So, Councillor Crawford, later on, near the bottom, why don't you, under notice of motion, talk about the motion that you're going to bring to the next meeting about recommendations. Fair? Okay. Anyone else wish to speak to this? To the endorsement? Okay, hearing, seeing none, please open the vote. Stop it. Next item, General Government Committee, December 8th. Moved by Councillor Henry, second by Councillor Dies, that the recommendations from the General Government Committee meeting of December 8th, 2025 be ratified. Questions, comments, any polls?
It was a good meeting.
Was it? I appreciate that. Please open the vote. That carries. Under departmental reports, 7.2.1 PSA 2025-08 Crisis Care Facility Bylaw Update. This was from the closed session report, moved by Councillor Lee, second by Councillor Henry. The report PSA 2025-08 Crisis Care Facility Bylaw Update be received for information. You have a presentation?
Just a couple words just to cue up the discussion because much of the conversation has happened in closed session, so just for the purpose of this meeting.
Please go ahead.
If the chair will indulge me, I guess I should say. The Crisis Care Facility Bylaw this has been developed by staff and being recommended to council based on the growing pressures that lower tier municipalities are facing related to the increased demand for emergency shelters and service providers for the unsheltered population. We, as was discussed at a former meeting of council and in a number of individual conversations that members of council and staff have had, residents, businesses, and neighbors often do come to the town with concerns. Concerns related to safety, nuisance, and other matters related directly to crisis care facilities in Ajax. And this is the added context that we do have a growing number of unsheltered folks in Ajax, which we all know is approaching 300 on the by name list. So per the bylaw that's being proposed, which will mirror a future definition in the town's comprehensive zoning bylaw review, is a crisis care facility, which is broadly encompassing a number of shelters and service providers that provide services for vulnerable individuals that provide emergency shelter or care. So the purpose of this bylaw is that those that operate a crisis care facility will be required to obtain a license in order to operate within the town. So these operators and the owners of the crisis care facilities need to work closely with the town to ensure that the requirements that are outlined in the bylaw are met and maintained for the duration of the license, and that facilities that are unable to obtain a license will be unable to operate within the town. So I've listed here, and it's outlined in the bylaw itself, but it does require compliance with existing bylaws, crime prevention through environmental design assessment, on-site and mobile security requirements, proof of operational policies, procedures to mitigate impacts on surrounding neighborhoods, as well as code of conduct for the patrons, as well as lot maintenance plans for waste, litter, debris, and a variety of other things. So again, the underscored purpose here is to provide a standard that we as the town would hold the crisis care facility operators to ensure that the spaces that are being offered to individuals that are very vulnerable in our community are held to a standard that we can be confident is keeping folks safe and keeping folks in both that attend the facilities themselves, but also those in the surrounding neighborhoods. So this is going to be a big change for the crisis care facility operators in town, and therefore an email was sent as soon as the agenda was posted publicly with the draft bylaw and the staff report. An email went to all operators inviting them for a meeting with staff to just kind of walk them through the bylaw to understand what this means. We've updated the Wet Town's website, www.ajax.ca/community supports with a frequently asked questions document. We will be running social media posts regularly and have been over the past week to ensure that folks are aware that this is coming. And then should council approve the bylaw today, a news release will be going out to share the information further. And then further next steps, we did ask in the council report to council that there be several months of time provided to staff to ensure the implementation of this bylaw is done correctly, and that staff have time to engage with the operators and give them time, so that it's not that today the bylaw comes into effect and we will be actively enforcing it. There will be forbearance on enforcement for the operators that are currently in existence. Staff have to, finalize some forms in our internal processes, as well as our general fees and charges bylaw. We're going to have some meetings, and then come January, there will be community meetings with residents and business owners across town to discuss both this specifically, as well as kind of the broader challenges and provide a platform. So happy to answer any questions, and thank you all for your time.
Councillor Henry, you're first.
Thank you, Chair. So on page 15, and thank you for your report and all the work that's gone into this. On page 15, if we look under notable changes from proposed bylaw during October 14th in-camera session, and the first section, I just want to ask a question or related care. So the sentence to clarify definitions, including crisis care facility, which has now been updated to mean a building or part thereof operated in whole or part by a public authority, nonprofit organization, charitable agency, or other entity that provides temporary accommodations and associated support services to persons requiring immediate emergency shelter and or related care due to circumstances such as homelessness, domestic violence, or other crisis. So the and or related care is, I want to understand what that language is, and if it allows for bigger permissions than I originally thought, and I just want to be careful with that language, if you could explain that.
Through the Mayor to Councillor Henry, yes. So the intention of the change in language was to encompass operators and facilities that provide services to vulnerable individuals, even though they may not be a shelter. So something like overnight winter warming, things like hub-related services that the region offers, any space where those are happening, where vulnerable individuals are congregating together in a space, we wanted the definition of a crisis care facility to encompass all of those operators, but without going so far as to provide all food banks, for example, as being crisis care facilities. So the original definition was specifically you needed to provide a shelter, emergency shelter. This broadens the scope a little bit so that we can ensure that all vulnerable folks that are accessing services in the community can do so to a standard of professionalism and safety that the town feels strongly about maintaining.
Okay, so I'm not sure how I feel about that last part, to encompass that. So maybe walk me through this. When we talk about a food bank who are dealing with our most vulnerable, and they're not necessarily unsheltered people they're dealing with, a lot of them are housed and just don't have the money for groceries. Does this affect the food bank?
Through the chair, or through the mayor? Absolutely not, no. So that is, the purpose is to not include something like a food bank that serves the broader community. This is specifically for services provided to specifically vulnerable individuals.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. That's what I just wanted to make sure it wasn't catching that in that net. I'm good. Thanks.
Councilor Bauer?
Thank you, Mayor Collier. Thank you for the refresher on the bylaw and the updates. I appreciate it. So I wanted to ask maybe some of the questions that I asked in October, just so I can get clarification or reminders. How many service providers do we currently have?
So through the mayor to Councillor Bauer, right now we have 4 that we will be seeking that we are seeking to engage with as part of this process.
Okay, thank you. And I had a question previously about, for example, Durham Youth Services, who has their main base, and then they also have a transitional house down the road. Would each facility be required to obtain a separate license?
Through the chair, yes, each individual physical property is required to obtain a license.
Okay. Okay, and I also had a question about regarding issues regarding anonymity for perhaps a shelter that does not want to disclose the address for safety reasons. Is that covered here?
Through the chair, right now, we haven't considered that specifically, but any information collected as part of this process would remain confidential as it's being collected through bylaw services. So it would be similar to a number of our existing licensing processes. It's not our intention to be publicly posting a list of shelter spaces or locations that might be location sensitive. We would certainly be mindful of that.
Okay. So it wouldn't be a case of someone could phone the town and ask for a list of all licensed crisis care facilities?
So through the chair, we would provide the names and details, but if there was a location sensitivity, we would use our staff would bylaw, I would imagine, would use their judgment to ensure that no unintended consequences would come of sharing addresses.
Okay, great. And does this include lodging homes or group homes?
Through the mayor, no, it does not.
Okay. And I know this came up from bylaw that was implemented in Coburg some time ago. Have we reached out to them to see if there has been any improvements or any comments that they would, share with us as to how this bylaw has impacted their situations?
Through the mayor to Councillor Bauer, yes. So staff did reach out to bylaw in Coburg to understand what their complaint volume looked like or how it changed. And I'll just read an excerpt from the manager of bylaw services there, which is that complaints prior to licensing at the one location that Coburg has was about 44% of the calls for service that the Coburg bylaw department received. And then after that, they were able to manage that they were inquiries that they got, they were actually able to action as part of the licensing bylaw. So it provided them, whereas previously they were receiving a complaint and they really did not have the bylaw grounds to investigate a lot of the time because it was happening on either private property or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It allowed them, the creation of the licensing bylaw allowed their bylaw officers to actually investigate, and so 56% after the fact were of those 44%, I guess, they were able to follow up on those cases specifically as it related to the bylaw.
Okay. And the intention here is to set the standard for each of these facilities, of course, so that everyone who either works there or visits there or uses the services is safe, and there's a standard like we would have for businesses, homeowners, etc. And that the bylaw allows for investigation and action as needed. enforcement.
Through the mayor, that's correct. And the town already licenses a number of different businesses. You mentioned
Yes.
group homes. There are a number of these processes that are already in place. And it is to provide a standard and to ensure a standard is kept for the businesses operating in town. And really for the town's purposes, staff feel strongly that based on some of the conversations we've had, both with the patrons of those, the users of the shelters, as well as the surrounding neighborhood, that ensuring there's a standard and that the town is able to follow up on that on an annual basis is very important.
Okay, all right. Thank you for your time on this and information. Those are my questions, Mayor Collier. Thank you.
You're welcome, Councillor Dyes. You're next.
Oh, thank you. You've mentioned that you had some correspondence back to the not-for-profits out there, and I'm wondering if you've had any feedback on the program?
Through the mayor, no, we've not received any responses to the email that was sent. The email was sent to the executive director's board or equivalent, including the Region of Durham's social services staff received the update or the draft bylaw, the staff report, as well as an offer to meet in the coming weeks before the holidays to discuss the bylaw. And I've not received any response.
So are we not looking for any kind of information from them, or we're just going to go ahead?
Through the mayor, absolutely. It would be 100% staff's intention to have a conversation. Once council, or if council approves the bylaw, our intention would be to provide several months that allow these organizations to familiarize themselves, to ask us the questions, and to understand what our intentions are as it relates specifically to their properties. So it's very much an ongoing conversation, and we want it to be, we don't want this to be a negative interaction. We want this to be, as fruitful as possible.
I understand that, but so I'm feeling that I'm under the assumption that things are not operating properly from what I'm reading, and that we need to bring in a licensing program to ensure they improve. But I don't know what the deficiencies are, or if there are any, or if we've had any explanation. I guess that's my question from those that are operating as to what their needs are and what they do. They may already have to get accreditation or have certain standards they have to meet to get funding. I don't know.
Through the mayor, what we are aware of is the region has shelter standards. I think that they released on their website, but it is not, in staff's opinion, not as comprehensive as what we're looking to accomplish with the license. Some of the things like crime prevention through environmental design, some of the good neighbor policies, lot management, code of conduct, those pieces, those are things that the town would just like a little bit more visibility in that we do not currently have with the operators.
So what does a lot neighbor kind of agreement look like?
Through the mayor, so what that would look like is ensuring that there's adequate management of any collection of litter, debris, a plan for when folks drop off donations that aren't wanted, right? So sometimes folks, well-meaning, will show up to a facility, they will bring a number of items for donation, but they don't bring it through the actual entities themselves. They just kind of leave it, they chat with some folks and they leave it, which creates sometimes can be a dangerous buildup of debris. So things like couches and things like that staff have witnessed around some of these facilities, that we just want to ensure that the operators are mindful of that and taking steps that they can to mitigate that from happening as often, to decrease the impact on town staff.
Thank you.
Councillor Henry, you've already spoken on this. Anybody else before I ask my questions? Okay. I'll come back to you, Councillor Henry, but I'm going to ask mine first. I don't see anything in here about distancing between crisis care facilities. And I'm wondering, I understand that this would give us the latitude for the manager of bylaw services, whoever's going to make the final decision, to make that decision. Personally, I'd feel better if there was something in here that gave specifics that we as a council could give an exception for, rather than leave that out. Can I get your thoughts on that, please?
Through the mayor, staff received, I'll hand this over to Deputy CAO Cooper.
So to answer your question, Mr. Mayor, the language in the bylaw is very carefully worded to make sure that it's compliant with the restrictions of the Municipal Act, which do not permit licensing regimes which will reject a license on the basis of location. That is to be done through zoning. And so we did approach it in a bit of a different way that gives the bylaw manager broad discretion to consider things like impact to the surrounding community. It is not specific because sorry, let me start that sentence again. It's written as intended to provide that discretion and to allow the bylaw manager to consider each individual circumstance on a case-by-case basis to understand how it's impacting the surrounding community, because each case will be different. Okay. But I will say the way it's worded is reflective of broad legal advice that we received.
So that's why it also doesn't say a crisis care facility can't be within X meters of a school or a daycare. We can't get that specific for that same reason? Okay, I understand. I saw you nod then. I understand. I was wondering for the existing, so they're going to now have to go through this process and get licensed. They've been, well, like Doors of Compassion across the road's been there for more than 5 years. I guess I don't want to what if this to death, but I mean, if they can't meet some of these requirements, what would happen?
To the mayor, there is a component in the bylaw that permits some level of exemptions to the requirements that can be issued at the discretion of the Director of Public and Strategic Affairs, which allows for those pieces where if it is truly something that the operator cannot achieve, but the town feels or staff feel it still appropriately, they are able to address the intention of the license, that's something that we can certainly support.
So does that come back to council for a decision, or is that delegated through this bylaw to give them that latitude?
It would be delegated through the bylaw to staff.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Henry?
Thank you, Chair. So just to summarize, this license will apply to existing operators that they will have to go through and meet compliance, but also for new operators that might be coming in, because as we know, our by name list has grown. So it's a precautionary measure for any new operators coming in from the town's perspective to make sure that they are in line with what we expect of a crisis care facility in the town of Ajax, correct?
Through the mayor to Councillor Henry, that is correct.
Okay, and then also when we are looking at the amount that we as a town have had to put out in costs of cleanups of encampments and areas around providers, and we are only recouping 50% of that as per the bylaw agreement with the region, we would now be looking at saying, it is not our responsibility to clean up the area around your facility, that is your area, and you need to clean that up to keep that in check, correct? We have certain expectations.
Through the mayor to Councillor Henry, kind of. So I'll share back with you. So it will be our expectation that the operators provide us with a lot maintenance plan, for example, to manage debris and litter cleanups and things like that. However, and their commitment to continuing that and completing that plan to our expectation is their license is reliant on that. So while there will still be times absolutely that town staff and resources will be used to remove debris or litter or things from town property, it is our hope that the holding the operators accountable to ensure that their license is contingent upon maintaining that to the best of their abilities. Again, I think the staff will be reasonable as we are with our bylaws to ensure that that's not unduly punitive or anything like that. But it's not going to remove the entire issue, but it will hopefully provide the town with some additional levers to pull in the event that there is an ongoing problem that's identified.
100%. And also too, we're not talking about specific operators, but there are partnerships with the region. The region has to step up in some of these areas to help maintain to our standards at the town what that looks like, and this helps to ensure that the region is a good partner, correct?
Through the mayor, yes.
Yes, not a bad thing. Okay, thank you. That's everything.
Thank you. Okay, not seeing any further speakers. Let's open the vote. And that carries. Are there any regional council reports? Sure, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I was able to attend the Big City Mayors, Ontario Big City Mayors on Friday. And I know everybody got an update, but one of the things that we talked about a lot was around the solve the crisis 0.2 or 2.0 now. So, and one of the things that was probably more, it's not much has changed really, because of course nothing has changed in the world, but one of the things that they were emphasizing was the need for a task force to be developed amongst the province, municipalities or regions, depending on the different tiers, and just organizations that deal with the homeless situation. We need to talk to the people and try to come up with some better solutions than what we have. Because the one thing that we all agreed on was that the solutions of shelters are certainly not the solution. It is simply Band-Aids that are being put on, and it's not addressing the issue. I remember a few months ago, when the mayor of Barrie had thrown out about compassionate intervention, everyone was aghast by that because, like it's a tough topic to talk about. But now, fast forward almost 6 to 8 months later, the regions are looking at it going, well, like we're not saying that everybody needs forced compassion, but there are a small percentage of 5 to 10% of the entire unsheltered population that are not going to be able to see themselves into that intervention. And so, can we look at identifying individuals for the better of their own selves, so that they don't die, and get them into intervention? So it was interesting, the shift from the meeting that I was in almost a year ago to the meeting that I was in today, that the conversation it was a very different conversation. So they did a press release afterwards. It was a very early morning, very early cold morning. So I didn't stay for that, but it was always a good conversation to have, and always good to listen to what people are dealing with around the province. So thank you.
Further on regional council reports? Hearing, seeing none, I have a motion moved by Councillor Crawford, second by Councillor Bauer. The regional council reports of December 8th, 2025 be received for information. Those in favor? And that carries. Is there any notice of motion, Councillor Crawford?
Yes, I have a notice of motion that, what am I going to say now?
Wait, do you want to do the motion now, or you want to do it for next meeting?
Oh, you want to, yes, I'm going to, so like, it's a notice of motion around,
It's notice of motion, it's not motion now.
so I don't have to give you the motion, right?
That's right. You're
To
just
deal
giving
with
notice of the
to
motion
deal
at the
with
next meeting.
circular materials.
Yeah,
Okay, who's talking?
it's okay, I'll chair. Go ahead.
Let's start again. A notice of motion to circular material and I guess Durham region to come up with a solution for recycling in recycling. I'll talk about it later. Thanks.
We know what you mean. Any other notice of motion? Nope, hearing, seeing none. What do we got? New business and announcements.
To you, Mr. Chair, we've just skipped item 10 being the bylaws.
We just skipped item 10 being the bylaws. And I believe you have a bylaw that you want to put on the screen to the clerk,
Yes.
please.
Can you share this?
This is the one that we just passed at GGC and directed to be put on this agenda. So We have the bylaws that are printed in the agenda and the additional one that we just passed on the personal wellness account. Moved by Councillor Bauer, second by Councillor Dies, that bylaws 90-2025 and 95-2025, which are the ones in the agenda, and 97-2025, which is on the screen, be approved. Questions on any of the bylaws? Councillor Henry.
Thank you. With regards to 10.4, I just wanted to ask, is it Mrs. Brownridge or?
Sorry, what's 10.4?
2026 fees, charges amendment, bylaw
okay.
adjustment. Who do I ask?
Probably.
Okay, so I just want to ask about the fees and what changes from what we've heard prior to what we're seeing now in the bylaw. Has there been any changes?
Can we see it on the screen?
Can we pull it up?
Number one in your hearts, page 57 of your agenda. Got it.
So who can answer that with regards to the report?
Through the mayor to Councillor Henry, there's no changes from the report that was presented in November at GGC.
Nothing has changed, correct?
Correct.
I didn't think so. I just wanted you to publicly say that. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, further on the bylaws? Hearing, seeing none, please vote. Yep. Yep, I'm efficient that way. Okay, that carries. We've done notice of motion, new business and announcements. Councillor Tyler Moore, tell us about your meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Your worship. Just announcing, didn't hear that, just announcing that tomorrow night, Tuesday, December 9th, 2025, we are going to attempt to talk about the budget with our community. It will be at McLean Community Center with Regional Councillor Marilyn Crawford, and our local councillor from Ward 2 is coming to join us as well, Councillor Henry. I will be there, and hopefully we get a good turnout, and we'll have the discussion, pre-budget discussion, I guess we can talk, say, Wards 1 and 2, and love everybody. Okay, that's it.
Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Mayor Collier. Regional Councillor Joanne Dies and I will be hosting an informal ward meeting. Come have coffee with your councillors on Thursday, December the 18th at the ACC in the Admiral's Room, starting at 6:30. There will be other refreshments other than coffee. Thank you.
Ooh, nice. Councillor Lee?
Thank you, Chair. On December 25th, it is Christmas, so just wishing everybody happy Christmas. And then on my calendar, it says on January 1st, it is New Year's, so wishing everybody a happy New Year. Thank you, Chair.
All right. I will just remind everyone of the next iteration of Live with the Mayor, which is tonight at 6 o'clock right here in this council chamber, where I will be doing a presentation on the budget that we are going to discuss on the 15th next week. Councillor Henry.
Thank you, folks. So I did get some inquiries, although it's not my ward, but I would like to remind folks about a public meeting for ACC Master Plan coming up, and I just lost my screen, and also about Ajax Community Center ACC Skate Park. And we have a Hanukkah celebration happening here on December 17th from 6 to 8 p.m. So happy holidays, everyone.
Okay, not seeing anybody further in the speaker's box. Moving on to the confirming bylaw. Moved by Councillor Tyler Moore and second by Councillor Lee. That bylaw 96-2025 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ajax at its regular meeting held on December 8th, 2025 be approved. Please vote. It carries. And finally, moved by Councillor Crawford, second by Councillor Tyler Moore, and that the December 8th, 2025 meeting of the Council of the Town of Ajax be adjourned. Let's open the vote. I vote no. Thank you, everyone. Hopefully see you all at 6 o'clock.